Evening, everybody. I forgot to tweet out the stream, so let me just take a quick second here to hit the tweet button. Okay, so sorry about that. I obviously had to rush a little bit to get started, and I forgot to tweet things out. So we're ready to go. I'll try and explain my lateness because there's a bit of a silly reason for it. So I was going to be late just because I needed to get dinner and such. Oh, I also forgot to enable House of Light, so I just need one more second to get that set up. But yeah, so again, it's largely work. This is going to be a particularly busy week at work, and obviously, it's been tough to get the stream started on time for the last couple of weeks as it is. So I'm not too optimistic about me being able to start at 7. I'd ideally like to start a bit closer to the usual window between 7 and 8. Sometimes these things can't be helped, but I had a book on reserve at the library, or on hold, and I got the notification basically at closing on the Saturday on Saturday, and the libraries here are closed on Sunday. I don't think there's a single one open on Sunday. At the very least, there isn't one that I can access open on Sunday. And given that I have a stream, I kind of give up any hope of being able to get a book, between leaving work and heading out to the stream. But I didn't realize that the library near where I live at least closes a little bit after 8. So I was pleasantly surprised by this, and I basically found it right around the time I was getting ready to go start streaming. So I had just enough time, like if I walked really quick, to make it to the library in time to get the book. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, I just want the book. I put it on hold for a reason. But number two, they do charge you if your hold goes on for too long. And of course, because I struggle to get to stream on time, there's no reason to think that I'm going to find it any easier to make it to the library even on my days off streaming. So I do apologize, but I think when you're playing a game about libraries and librarians, not starting on time because you wanted to pick up a book is about as good of an excuse as any. So let's do a quick recap. I just also wanted to get, in terms of housekeeping, just a reminder to everybody that I will be out of town, out of the country next week. Definitely can't make a Monday and Wednesday stream because on Wednesday there would be the local game dev meetup anyway. Monday is just right out. I think I'm probably flying out on Sunday. I should probably check my itinerary. But yeah, I'll be I'll be away on at least on Monday. I'm not able to stream on Wednesday, and that, again, regardless of my travel plans, was going to happen. I will do my best to be there for Friday. Again, it kind of depends on a number of other factors. And then, of course, the week following that is the release week for Book of Hours House of Light. So the 26th is the release date for this, and there was a confirmation on the subreddit that the game is on track for its full release. Or the expansion is on track for its full release, after which I believe Weather Factory will be moving on to their third game. And I remember there was an announcement about a not not Secret Histories game that was being prototyped, but it does seem that the third game is in fact a Secret Histories title. But I figure, how you doing, Prosciutto Fist? I will wait until there's a little bit more of a pulse in chat in the channel to shout out your many wonderful qualities. But we've done a lot of cooking, so you may want to stick around for a little bit just so I can show you all the goodies. I do want to do a quick introduction of the people behind it and the DLC though, because obviously we've got a well, not necessary, but I like doing it. I genuinely like your stuff. I sometimes feel bad when I can't make it, but it is very fun to watch you stream, and you obviously put up with a lot from me. So I figure at the very least, I can try and direct a few people to your stuff. Incidentally, for those of you who do like audiobooks, I know a few of you have said that you enjoyed it when I did like the Gold Bug or well, most of the Gold Bug. There's certain words I would not read in that particular story, but or 1984 or Animal Farm. I will mention that Prosciutto Fist has been doing an audiobook or an audio reading or whatever we call this on. Yeah, I'm lucky that Ionix is on. This is true. But anyways, Prosciutto Fist has been doing a reading of Bram Stoker's Dracula. So for those of you that happen to like audiobooks, this is I think you shout this out solely to get you to continue Dracula. Well, it just happens to be something that people say that they like that I've done. So I figured that in terms of crossover, like I actually, not to knock your reading abilities. I mean, those are perfectly fine. Like I wouldn't shout you out if I if I didn't think it was worth it. But Oswin Meow, lovely to see you too. Two wonderful streamers in my channel. Thank you very much, both of you, for hanging out. But the thing, like, for me, one of the things I enjoy the most, you have a very nice and quick wit, which is a lot of fun to see. So, yeah, I mean, even if you're doing Baldur's Gate for the 3 in the title doesn't mean that's the number of times you need to play the game through, by the way, but you're eagerly waiting your cast today now that you know what you're looking for in Book of Hours. Oh, great. Okay, well, I'm a bit further in this particular one, but definitely if you have any questions, Oswin, feel free to ask, because I know Pro has kind of started the game a couple of times as well. I think she's actually felt a little bit like you have in a couple of points. So I think between the three of us, I will give the 700 hours in this game perspective. Prosciutto Fist can give you some of the, hey, this is what it means in plain English. And I was joking anyway, Prosciutto Fist, but I think you should just play what you're interested in. But I mean, it's not like I've been branching out from Book of Hours for a while, but yeah. Anyways, I think between the three of us, we may actually begin to start making some kind of sense and helping everybody make some progress through Book of Hours. So let's talk about the people behind it. Let's talk about the new features in House of Light, and let's return to Brandkrug. Weather Factory is design, writing, and coding, Alexis Kennedy, art production and marketing by Lottie Bevan. We salute our collaborators, additional coding by Roman Loskudov, Knights of Unity FRGM, additional art by Adrian Deggan, Clockwork Cuckoo, and Catherine Unger, music by Maribeth Solomon, Bent Barkman for Mickey Mar Productions Limited, RIP Mickey Erb, SFX by Soundcuts, Chinese localization by the Dove Archive. Again, apologies to the localizers because I am not going to be able to pronounce these things. I'm sorry, Pro. I liked watching you play it. Russian localization by Riot Lock. Steam page localization. I will just mention ClockQ, who stopped by a couple of times in the channel. Always appreciate that. And then special thanks to all our beta testers, Riley Lebrecq for Steamworks.net. I do want to know what the story is behind Fingal's Coffee on Trafalgar Road. If I ever wind up in London, I will try, assuming that that's in London. Johnny Cockland and Mark Lewis, Alex Tuddy and Anna Poulter-Jones, PK and Sonia, Matt and Taz, and Sulo Inchi, the Weather Factory cats. House of Light. In the House of Light. House of Light is a big expansion woven deep into the game. Here is a spoiler light guide on how to find the new bits. Food. Combine ingredients at all the 3 kitchen workstations to create dozens of new dishes. You'll need kitchenware items to find all the recipes. Tip: the spice scales and the spices and savors skill will substitute for each other. A writing case. Once you've received this gift, you can record addresses from the calling cards left by satisfied visitors and write to these visitors to invite them back to the house. Tip: visitors don't arrive instantly, visitors don't leave calling cards until you've helped them, and some visitors are easier to summon than others. Salons. Place food and drink in one of the 6 salon rooms and then use the bell to begin a salon. Do it right and you will be rewarded with sparkling conversation and lessons. Tip: visitors usually prefer food and drink which matches their primary interest, but some have additional requirements. Beta note: there are about 400 interactions here, but probably another 100 to go. In particular, the villagers don't yet have unique interactions. However, we did invite the Kills in their Sunday best. They brought a marrow. So there's at least some villager interactions here. Manuscripts. Use paper, ink, and a skill to write a manuscript based on that skill. These manuscripts may be necessary to satisfy thirst for specific knowledge in further stories. Lessons from salons will help you improve those skills and write more useful manuscripts. Tip: you can't reliably control what visitors will discuss. It's a party, not an interrogation, but they will usually provide lessons related to their shared interests. Further stories. Once you have completed an incident, follow it up in the Tree of Wisdoms. Visitors will need more specific help here, perhaps a book on a specific topic or a specific book. Note: further stories for the Invisible Opera and the Dappled Rose are not yet available in beta. Tip: an affair opens to further stories once all interested visitors have had the opportunity to ask for help with it. Be aware, in some further stories, it can make a difference who you originally helped. Be careful, this is one part of the game where choices can sometimes have permanent consequences. As an aside, Osmond Meow, and possibly Pro, depending on how you want to treat your save, this is actually recorded even in the base game. So if you were playing a save, like I've been doing on YouTube, and House of Light releases, you actually cross over, and the people who you don't get to keep them in the writing case. I think you need to add them on their own. But essentially, the further stories, all of the stuff that happened in terms of helping visitors, those are actually recorded in the game, and the House of Light expansion does recognize it. Finally, the title feature, the Institute. Look for the Institute out at sea. When your visitors are ready, use it to establish the true heirs to the Curia of the Isle. Note: only a very limited and incomplete preview of the Institute functionality is available in beta. Tip: further stories' outcomes can inspire your visitors to support the Institute. For their own reasons, their nature is constant, but some story outcomes can make them decide to emphasize one agenda over another. Telling you your actions have consequences? Unfollowed, yeah. Well, I kind of feel like every single time I come into your stream, I should really just scream the words, "I will never get my comeuppance!" Alright, save your game if you're worried about what might happen next. Book of Hours is a gentler game than Cultist Simulator. You can save and load at will, which is actually really helpful for streaming. As an aside, I hope this is clear by the sign in the top left-hand corner, but this is an early beta. So obviously if you're making purchasing decisions on this expansion, please keep in mind these are probably some videos which will people might be checking out before or when the game first comes out, while other better streamers record their stuff. But again, just keep in mind that this is something that's still being worked on. I know because I got a reply to bug reports this morning. They are still actively working on the DLC. Okay, so we don't have that much to do. It's evening. It was a foggy day, so normally those are kind of helpful, but we will... That Gentle felt targeted? The the beta stuff? No, not at all. Why, are you complaining about the state of the game? No, there was just one case where I felt like, so one thing that I kind of had to struggle with on one stream was somebody was coming in sort of talking about how the cooking was a step back because it didn't have like a recipe list inside like a lot of the other crafting does. And of course that crafting list was something that was added after the game was released, and that does actually create a difficulty. Oh, gotcha. No. This is a gentler than Cultist Simulator. Okay, girl, just at me next time. Yeah. So the tricky part for me in that, I might as well just finish the story. The tricky part for me there was that you can't. It's kind of like if somebody. This is a terrible analogy, but it's kind of like if somebody says something bigoted in your chat. Like you can't just let that pass, right? Because there's sort of this tacit approval almost that that people might assume. Obviously Weather Factory gave me this access, and it's really cool. They are one of the few developers that actually allows me to stream the game in an early state. I think that's a really nice thing that they do. But one of the conditions in that, of course, is that that I'm really clear that this is an early beta. So, when people are sort of complaining about stuff that they're seeing in the unfinished version of the game, it makes things a little awkward for me. Oh yeah, that's fine. Sorry, I thought the Grail was missing on that. I was not zooming in for other reasons. But I read what was it, Etery after all the time for that. But yeah, anyways, it was a little tricky. Hello, Vanguard Master. How are you doing? All right, Osmond, you've been very patient with me. Let's do an inventory of the food that we have made. We have a stuffed acrid marrow. This was not a marrow. Actually, sorry, there is one thing I like about the way that they describe the marrows. So I'll just point this out. We do actually have an acrid marrow. So this is acrid marrow. In Brandkrug, they take their marrow seriously. This is not a marrow conducive to harmony. Edge, heart, and nectar. This is as opposed to the dark marrow. In Brandkrug, they take their marrow seriously. This is a marrow with secrets. Or the pale marrow. In Brandkrug, they take their marrow seriously. This is a marrow redolent of sorrow. So here we have the stuffed acrid marrow. This was not a marrow conducive to harmony. Now it's a dish for warriors. We have the Cornish honey cake. Under no circumstances should this ever be confused with Devonshire honey cake, which everyone in Brandkrug could instantly identify as an inferior variation. We have a stuffed golden marrow. This marrow was accounted a beauty among its kind. Now it's a dish for those who understand fidelity. A Madeira cake. In the 18th century, one would have a slice of this in the morning with a glass of Madeira, fortified wine from the Madeira Islands, volcanic yet lush, rugged yet balmy, bright with the calls of sandpipers and firecrests. This is the 20th century. We have afternoon tea now. We don't drink fortified wine at 10 o'clock in the morning. No more sandpipers, no more firecrests. But the cake's still good. Almonds. All the good people are here. So we've got Vanguard Master, Osmond Meow, Prosciutto Fist, Selphea. This does not look like those miniature food things. Sorry, which are you referring to, Osmond? I'm actually going to get... Okay, I've got so many shout-outs to do right now. Let's try and do this in order. So I think Prosciutto Fist was the first one in. So for those of you not familiar with Prosciutto Fist, I actually found Pro's stream through Book of Hours. Wonderful broadcaster. Like I said earlier, has this wonderful quick wit. And in fact, I mean, we've kind of had chats about everything from history to... mythology and, well, sorry, I was about to say Civil War, but Civil War is history. But I quite like ProStream. She's got a Etsy store up as well. And I was mentioning was doing an audio recording of Bram Stoker's Dracula. But definitely somebody that I recommend if you are interested in Book of Hours. And on top of that is just a heck of a lot of fun to watch. I happen to know that she will potentially be doing some history-oriented material. So I've seen her do Assassin's Creed, but I think there are going to be a couple of history streams that she's planning. And this was because I was sharing the Queen, Civil War erasures. But yeah, we've got, I was sharing the Queen, Rear Admiral Grace Murray Hopper. So presumably that lecture will be, well, Hopefully it's part of it. But anyways, on top of that, we have got Oswin Meow, who, in addition to doing lots of other games, I've watched, Oswin is the only person I've ever watched play Helldivers 2, or Canadians in our politeness call it Heck Divers 2. Got to get that teen rating somehow. But Oswin is actually somebody. So first of all, someone who's fascinating to talk to both on and off stream is a real life scientist. They know the maths and they know the biologies. And it's actually Oswin's one of these people who they're so nice you can't be too mad at them, but you're a little mad at them because it feels like, in the name of balance. Like, okay, so if you do certain role-playing game systems, you have to allocate the points and everybody gets the same number of points. So, like fighters are usually like big and dumb, right? And then like the wizard is really intelligent, but they're like useless in a fist fight. But then there's people like Lottie or Oswin where you think is like, oh, okay, well, you're really good with science stuff, but where's the poetry? You don't have a soul, do you? No, actually, Oswin's really good at the literature and the English bit too. So, but I would say that because Oswin's also the only person I've seen do Disco Elysium, and I knew that I was going to do Disco Elysium, so I sort of watched on and off so that I wouldn't have too much of the story sort of told to me before I experienced it. But again, a wonderful person to hang out with, a very nice stream to watch. And in fact, I found this out only after the fact, but this was actually somebody who wrote a very, very nice message on one of the YouTube videos for Cultist Simulator. And it just happened to be one of those comments where I was not feeling like, a gift to streaming or anything like that. And it was just this nice comment that just made me feel good. And it took quite a bit of time to make the connection between the individual behind that comment and the individual who was also a broadcaster and hanging out in my chat. So another wonderful individual, on a little bit of a streaming hiatus, but definitely somebody who's worth following, so that when they come back to streaming, you'll be able to see the effects. And finally, we've got the wonderful Australian broadcaster Selphea, who is actually playing a game that Prosciutto Fist got me into. Is it Sun Harvest? It's like Stardew Valley for people who like Game of Thrones. Sunhaven, sorry, my bad. So it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had an early day at work, so I didn't stay around a whole lot of time. But that was the most recent thing that I saw Selphea play. Again, a wonderful broadcaster who I found through Dendrian originally, but has a wonderful community. Has a lot of streamers actually hanging out in their broadcast. But somebody who's been very supportive of me, especially at a time when I haven't been able to catch their stuff. Oh yeah, and then there's Vanguard Master. Vanguard Master doesn't stream, but he'd like you to stream his game, so please do. I don't know if I can talk about your future plans for that game, or if you want to keep that to yourself, but I know you're looking forward to some activity in that regard. All right, I am going to talk to you about food. Pumpkin pie. Take a pound of pumpkin and slice it. A handful of thyme, a little rosemary, and sweet marjoram stripped off the stalks. Chop them small. Then take cinnamon, nutmeg, pepper, and a few cloves, all beaten. Hannah Woolley, A Gentlewoman's Companion. And fried mushrooms on toast. You can do great things with these with a simple white sauce with black pepper, but sometimes you're just hungry. All right. Let's move up. These are sort of base ingredients. We're not quite... Oh, I'm going to have to feed the chicken. Or maybe cook the chicken. We have got moli au jus. This has been called moth, but delicious. But perhaps we will all be at the end. Fair enough. As a side note, I think it's funny all your soul fragments are fatigued, but you have a lot of money. Yes. That is exactly how I feel, actually. We have got the jugged pheasant, the hunter's reward, and we did look up jugging in order to find out what this was. I'm learning quite a bit about. Oh, I bought a cookbook because of this, actually. We have a boiled egg, neatly packaged nutrition, pale as a December dawn. Vegetable stew, unexciting but also unobjectionable. Roast beef. Our fathers of old were robust, stout, and strong, and kept open house with good cheer all day long, which made their plump tenants rejoice in this song. Oh, the roast beef of Old England, and Old English roast beef. Henry Fielding, The Grub Street Opera. Right, these are unprepared potatoes. We've got scrambled egg with bacon. Scrambled eggs were the breakfast of empire. In these less hegemonic times, empire is optional, as is bacon. Rosehip sponge cake. Rosa rugosa, the beach rose, is often regarded as a foreign interloper on European shores, but this cake is a strong argument for our hospitality. Stuffed dark marrow. This was a marrow with secrets. Now it's a dish for misties. Magnificent roast potatoes. It's the dripping that elevates it. Roast potatoes are a feast for the senses, but the dripping deepens the flavor profile, makes the experience continue through the machinery of the mouth to become a kind of journey. Toffee pudding, decadent in summer, comforting in winter. Fudge, all the bad things, doing a good thing. Oh, Kite, you could not have picked a better time to say that. Kite is a very sorry. Kite is a long-standing friend on Twitch. I've known him about as long as I have been on this platform. Another streamer who I love hanging out with. He's been doing a lot of, is it Black King Wukong? Anyways, I always remember the Wukong bit because of the, I have not yet convinced him when he beats a boss to say, "Who got Wukonged? You got Wukonged." But, he's not finished the game yet. Maybe he's saving it for the last boss. Anyway, somebody I like hanging out with. I don't think we've done this on stream, but oh, you know what? Maybe I have played Outlast Trials on stream, but I can't remember if I've played with Kite on stream or not. That is a very different game when you play it with someone because they start adding like random player characters in. Anyways, sorry. I realize there's a lot of streamers in here and a lot of shoutouts to do, but these are all definitely all people worth watching. Okay. Blackberry sponge cake. Light sweet sponge cake and the taste of autumn hedgerows. Plum croutons. One should never make this with plums that are not ripe enough to eat. One is quite serious. Algrins, good to see you. Apple charlotta, a classic English pudding of apples stewed with cinnamon and layered with a crisp golden bread. I like talking about all of your your streams. We've got roast pheasant. Best when roasted upside down to start, but turned right way up before the end. We've got the Walls of Ys. I actually like this description. A frankly insensitive name that commemorates the inundation of that fabled city. Not cake, according to the ancient pattern. I think these are just plain potatoes, yeah. We've got pickled mushrooms. You'll learn to like them. I think we have something out in the garden. Game pie, pheasant or snipe or woodcock or rabbit, and tasty pastry. Egg croquettes, come for the crunch, stay for the nourishment. And kedgeree, a wonderfully versatile dish favored for breakfast by the sons of the lark and for supper by the daughters of the owl. Fortunately for me, I just had dinner before I started streaming, so. think I forgot this one. So steamed spring vegetable pie, originally a product of Lord Berners Kitchens at Farringdon House, favored by Herbert Percy, the mad boy, Berners' companion, who inlaid the floor of his changing room with pennies and built steps to his swimming room pool. Built steps to his swimming pool. All right. Ham and cheese toasty, breakfast, lunch, or emergency. Game chips. Long before fish and chips, these went crunchily with game. Ideally, you'd want bread sauce and bread crumbs to complete the ensemble, but honestly, it's hard enough just not to just stuff these directly into your mouth. Marinated roast beef. But since we have learnt from all vaporing fants to eat their ragousts as well as to dance, we're fed up with nothing but vain complacence. Oh, the roast beef of Old England and Old English roast beef. Henry Fielding, The Grub Street Opera. Pear pie. Flaky buttery crust, luscious pears with cinnamon and nutmeg. And ham and potato bake, filling and tasty. Solomon's preparation. Solomon Husher would take this every night without fail before sleep to close his ears to the sound of the waves. But on the 9th of January, 1838, heavy snow fell on Hush House. When the other residents dug themselves out, Husher was nowhere to be found. He had left a resignation letter and an undrunk measure of this preparation. We did actually do a stream on January 9th, the Aganalia of Janus, because we are nothing if not cultured people here. I can't remember. Oh, yeah, we've got something here. Ham and egg casserole, tasty and filling. And I think we had at least one more. So you do actually get some hints. So the game does provide you hints on how to make these things, but there's actually some of the hints are weaved into the house itself. So we've got the kitchen, King's Luck pie, a beef pie with pears and cinnamon, and secret ingredients. It's the traditional dish of the house. It was first cooked, they say, for King Henry, when in great secrecy on St. Piran's Day he came to Cornwall seeking the king's metal, tin, to restore his alloy. It probably didn't happen, but the pie did. And here we have the King's Luck pie. Thyrza Blake always insisted on calling it the Great Pie of Power, to the everlasting annoyance of her peers. All right, enjoy your digging your holes, Vanguard. I'm sorry I'm going over the food, but we have quite a lot of it here, and I've actually had a lot of fun making it. So I think we are good to go. So we are going to be moving on. We've got a couple of soups that we need to make, and then I also need to start raiding the chickens for some eggs. So some steak in the fridge. Ooh. Actually, I'm going to just take one more second and get the spreadsheet that I've got for ingredients. So the ones that I haven't written down items for yet. So the apple pie, we're waiting for a basket of apples. The honey haunted amber pumpkin pie. That's because soft amber pumpkin is hard to come by. Oh, that's interesting. Apparently I've made all the things that need meringues. So yeah, onion soup, leek soup, and Blue Crown tea. And then maybe I'll make some replacements for the stuff that I've used in one of the previous salons. And then I suppose at that point I should probably start hosting more salons. Now, I will mention, whether or not you are brand new to the channel, brand new to the game, we do have a few people who have not played the game before or who are quite new to the game. So if anybody does have questions, whether you have a playthrough that you're running through or you're just curious, it's a great time to ask questions. I obviously have made some progress in Hush House, but that doesn't mean that we can't answer questions. I actually really like answering questions because it's hard for me to get into... Did I forget to keep a memory? I did. My bad. But yeah, it's easy for me to forget kind of what I was like at the start of the game. And so where I can, I want to try and be as open as I can in terms of answering questions and such. So I have a few things that I want to do today. One of those is to catalog the Dawn period books, because I think it's probably too much to hope. I also should rearrange. So we've got herbs and infusions here. Oh, I think I know what the deal is. I think I was going to try and bring... Yes, I think I was going to try and bring the inks up to level 3. I'll explain the logic behind that in a little bit, but let's figure out my next few steps. So in terms of rooms, we may need to wait. So I do have some things that I can give Mr. Kill to help open the different rooms. The Wormwood Dream is my best bet right now, but if I can avoid giving some of those up. One question you have is, what do you do with soul fragments with maladies? Well, there's a couple things that you can do with them. So soul fragments with maladies actually don't get fatigued. And so you can sometimes use them for things. Like you can still use them in some types of crafting. There are some things that will specifically prohibit afflictions, but not everything. One of the other things that you may want to do, though, is heal them. And so what you can do, you may have already read this inside the game, but basically if you had an element of the soul that needed to be, needed recovery. So I think if your Faust is afflicted, for instance, you know, you could, usually you can put it inside the restore slot. And for that one, I think you need something like 5 nectar. So leaves and thorns seems like it would be the sort of thing that I could put in, but in this case I have the wrong type of bed. So I'd either want to move beds to one which would take grail or nectar, or maybe I say, okay, well, we've got rights of the roots. Well, that one takes moth, so that doesn't work. But how about herbs and infusions? Well, that I can use with heart. So, okay, now we're up to 3. Now, normally, if you are healing, you need either a refreshment or you need like linens, clean linens. So if we were trying to get nectar, probably what we would do, it's what every doctor orders when you get sick, and that's just to take, you know, the closest bottle of dandelion wine and pour that directly into your mouth. Oh, yeah. So there's actually, it's good to actually, this is a really good point to make. So there's a couple of ways, this is true for Cultist Simulator as well. There's a couple of ways that the game will communicate to people how to do things. So each card, of course, has its various aspects. So Grail, Heart, Element of the Soul. For those of you that have played Cultist Simulator, there are actually some new aspects as well, or principles or powers, however you want to call them. So Scale is new, Nectar is new, Sky, Moon. There's a few of them. But yeah, so one thing you can do is just take a look at the individual cards, and then you have the sort of guide at the top here. Now those will determine the soul, skill, and memory of any given workstation. Usually the ones below don't have the same restrictions. They will have some restrictions, but you'll notice that they're not restricted by their like, it's not the principles that are affecting this. But instead of just having to like remember what all of these things are, if you click on an empty slot, you'll get the flash in terms of what aspects it has. And that goes the other way too. So for instance, let's say I was looking for a drink that had Grail, right? So I've got a wine cellar down here, and it's like, okay, I know at least one of these gives me Grail. I'm pretty sure it's Domain Reveline, the one right here. But it's like, maybe I don't want to click on all of these. Well, if I mouse over the Grail, the items will flash as well. So Oswald's question gave me an opportunity to sort of share 3 different ways that the game communicates how you can interact with certain objects. But the fact remains, I need to decide what I'm doing today. One option I do have is to hire a special hireling, but I'm not quite at my limits in terms of what I can do. So for instance, sorry, let me get my other set of notes. So for instance, with the Wormwood Dream, I should be able to get Mr. Kill up to a fairly high level, which would allow me to open up the Crystallized Chamber. We might even be able to go so far as to open the Fluttering Crypt. And then the Ravaged Cellar as well. So let's just take a quick minute here. And with Mr. Kill, so it's got here with Mr. Kill, we start with 2, then we have a Wisp of 2. If we give him a Memory with 2, that takes him up to 6. Solomon's Preparation will take him up to 10, and then we can give him a U-Blank for 11, at which point we will either need to feed him a Pale Marrow, which will take him up to 12. Now that doesn't actually get me anywhere. I believe 13 is the highest. Although I am slightly curious. So this one was a Dark Marrow. Oh, did I not make a... I wonder if I don't think you add extra winter by doing a stuffed Pale Marrow. Yeah, that still just has... Still just has 1. So either I'm going to need to level up my Whist, which is tempting. I need to wait for snow, or we use the Wormwood Dream. So let's just see what we can do with Mr. Kill and the Wormwood Dream. So he starts with 2. We give him a Whist, which brings him up to 4. Wormwood Dream is worth 6, so that would bring him up to 10. Solomon's Preparation is 4, so that brings him up to 14. And then a U-Bank brings him up to 15. Okay, so that kind of tells me everything I already need to know here. It'll be a little tricky to get the Wormwood Dream back, but I think it's worth it. So let's take our Whist. Speak with Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. Now, I do want to catalog these books as well. I feel secure enough where I'm at to just sort of throw all my elements at the soul in them. So I did learn something in the YouTube playthrough that I found kind of helpful. But I'm not going to abuse that. So, Catalog a Dawn Period book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Dawn Period, sometime before the end of the first millennium, commonly reckoned. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Now, one possibility here is that I do wind up with an affliction. So I will actually use a couple of my Whist here just because I can. And then I suppose the question is, Trist, I think I said I wasn't willing to risk because it was difficult to bring back. But I do have a lot of it, so I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. I do also want to make these soups, so let's... Oh, not the piano. So we'll take the leeks. We will take the dripping. We've accidentally ordered a ton of it, so... Make leek soup, a dish with edge, moon, and nectar. And I think because I can, Onion soup. Well, actually, we can get those by considering... Get the onions. These are onions. Wonderful. And finally, let's feed Terrence, otherwise the chicken will murder me in my sleep. Feed the beastie. Satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. Resentful Terrence. Cluck. Cluck! Okay. Now, I do have some options of reading various books and such, but we have used quite a bit already. It's also fall, so probably not a bad time for me to be doing some gardening. So, orchids and narcotics, carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. I have a slight bias here towards gardening just because I am still looking for the pumpkin. I could also talk... I think the bees are quiet at this time. And we should get some honey scar jasmine as well. Honey scar jasmine, like a dart of sweet fire. I thought you were going to say because you're a real life gardener. No, but Pros had to put up with many accounts of the bees at work. I like the bees at work. I should also probably be making a bit of money. So let's use FOST, help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug and not everyone here knows their letters. Or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. So the Gale's interesting here. Normally this would be a pretty special event, but the difference now is that we have generated... Oh dear, where did I put the Swaddled Thunder? I know in one playthrough I kept it here. I think I keep it in the lower levels now. Nope. Anyways, I'm pretty sure I have a Swaddled Thunder, and that means that I can sort of bring in a storm whenever I want. But that's assuming I can find it. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need to think about that when I want to start making some of the bigger items. Alright, onions, the prima materia of cooking. This may be why the cosmos is so shaped like an onion. Or shaped so like an onion. Alright, let's do a quick hunt for the... Oh, and Oriflammes. Oriflammes, established 1776, Sense Signs Sciences. Dear librarian, we would like to offer you this opportunity to purchase the Concursum Diaries, the diaries of an explorer and murderer, Lars Westergren. He's unhelpfully translated them into Frisian for privacy. Now, I don't think I have Path and Pilgrim yet. So this makes this doubly interesting. Although it's very expensive. Oriflammes thanks you for your custom. Alright, let's take a minute here and see if I can find that Swaddled Thunder. This is what I get for spending too much time in the other playthrough. Oh hey, we do have Blue Crown Tea. Did I make the notes of that? Yes, I did. Alright then. So what I may... again, assuming that I do have the Swaddled Thunder. So once you get the Swaddled Thunder, you can kind of bring a storm whenever you want. And so the Gale doesn't mean as much to me. But that doesn't mean that I can't take advantage of the weather. So we actually have a lot of cursed books in this case. So the Keeper Skin needs Nectar. The Chionic Theoplasma needs Heart. So if I wanted to try and clear out the 3 and the 3, or possibly Exercises in the Continuity of Self, or the In Memory of Gods, I'd probably do Exercises in the Continuity of Self. Now would be a good time for me to do that. If I think of it, so we've got Chionic Theoplasma. I need to find the one that actually handles it. Oh, okay, this is a piece of cake. I don't actually need to worry. We've already got the 9 Heart. But yeah, this would be a case where having a more powerful weather would be an opportunity for me to clear out these. Have you talked about how I organize my books in my past streams? I have on occasion, but it changes. One that I've stuck on because I don't like referring to my spreadsheet as often when I'm streaming. I'm currently organizing this library around the memories that they give me. And you do not need to apologize for questions, Oswin. I actually really like answering questions. So in this case here, we've got contradictions here in the first of Ava's desk, and then we've got the Stolen Secrets above. This was kind of where I would put the books that I'm about to read. Right now, this is just housing my writing case, so if you have a favorite character, just mention one. And that's for anybody in chat, by the way. If you have a favorite character and you want to know their address, I'm happy to show that. These are sort of overflow shelves for different cursed books. I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I will tentatively say 9, but it could be more cursed books. I think that's the largest number of cursed books that I've had in any session. But yeah, essentially what I do is I will shelve books based on the memory that they give me when I read them. And then when I start running out of space, like kind of what's happening with Revelations now, I try to move them to different shelves. And then when there are a couple of series that do actually wind up taking up more than one shelf, I'll usually, give them 2 shelves worth. But my very first playthrough, when I was playing as the Twiceborn, I actually shelved everything by the era. So I would put sort of the baronial books together, all the the books that the DeWolfs wrote. I kind of put those in one section of the library, and I would sort of arrange them by subject, which kind of made for some interesting reading as well. A little bit harder to keep track of what the memories were, but I had a spreadsheet for that. All right, Mr. Kill can spare a few hours to help a friend. So the reason I went to make some money right away is I knew I'd want to restore the Whist. The way I work it out is that if you use the more profitable elements of the soul, you can basically get 3 recharges for one bit of labor. But I suppose the next question now is, how do I want to spend the day? So I already have the Wormwood Dream, and I'll probably want to generate another one, but I may be able to get that from Mr. Kill and his memories anyway. And what I might want to do is just clear out the remaining Keeper Skin. So that takes 7 Nectar. I'm trying to remember which one gets rid of the Keeper Skin. It's really sick. No, it can't be Sickle and Eclipse. I need one with Nectar. I think I might be gardening with it. Breakfast, lunch, or emergency? I get that it's a ham and cheese toasty, but still, it's close. I think I'll wait this out, but yeah. So today's goals, we'll use the onions to make another soup. I will level Mr. Kill up to get him opening up. We might as well get him opening up the Fluttering Crypt, and then we can worry about the lower level ones. Now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. So each flame has fuel, a work by Omar the Blaze, an initiate or craftsmaster at the Labyrinth of Lions. That's a 14 book, so I think I'm actually going to have to start moving the 12s down to another area. Running out of space. Alright, so these are the 8s. Yeah, so I can't afford to discriminate anymore, so we'll move you over here. You're getting a lesson in my shelving system now. So these are books that I've not yet read. And I just wanted to try and rank a few. Wanted to try and rank them by difficulty, with varying degrees of success, but I've got a lot of 12s actually. Is there a sky text? Not a 14 one. There's dessert. Where? How you doing? I actually just had some ice cream. So we've got Vesper, another wonderful streamer. Somebody. Actually, what have you been playing lately, Vesper? Because I know you've been doing a bunch of variety, which I've largely been missing. Also, I saw there was a Ronald Reagan movie that came out. I'm guessing you bought a ticket? And Index Gnome, good to see you as well. But I should mention that for those of you that are Ace Attorney fans, Vesper's going to be one of the reasons. I'm sorry, I'm actually not speaking to it. Oh, that's right, you played Blasphemous. I watched you play Blasphemous. I'm sorry. I was going to say, I wasn't speaking to Vesper's qualities as a streamer. He actually has done a couple of talks. If I recall correctly, Oswin was in the chat for the Satanic Panic lecture that Vesper gave. But Vesper actually gifted the Ace Attorney series, which I've not yet played on stream. I fully intend to sort of give advance notice when I do that. If nothing else, I need to tell Vesper. But a wonderful broadcaster who I think exhibits some of the qualities that I was talking about some of the previous streamers as well. So I'm delighted to have as many streamers as there are inside of the channel, although it makes me wonder, why aren't you all going out and entertaining the masses? I'm grateful that you are here, though. Next lecture will be in queer coding. Like Python? The Morphe Codex. Okay, so a 6 Moon Trides Mahaira. That's a pretty straightforward one for me to read, but the question is whether or not I want to... I'm being very silly. Oh, and today was Japanese class. Snakes are innately queer. Tell that to the mother of ants. Gotta keep up with the spies, as you call them. Well, I mean, I only base this off of your, mysterious travels around the world, and the fact that Momo and you always keep showing up at just the right place. Anyways, I'm definitely looking forward to catching you on a lecture day. Oh, here we go. So, Oswin, you get to see me struggle with an illness. She may be a little quiet because I have to draw my D&D character. Absolutely no worries there. You have that melody as well. All right, well, first of all, let's check. We've got the Songs of the Carapace Cross. I don't think I've ever seen this one before. So this one has witchworms, tiny larvae with half-human faces. Fortunately, they rarely develop into their imago stage, but even as larvae, their whispering can torment senses and distort thoughts. Alright. When I bend too close to this, I hear a faint whispering, an infestation, witchworms. Your whist has suffered from the whispering of worms. This item is infested. Whist shell-crossed. My thoughts are tangled and unfamiliar to me. Something of those who came before. The Carapace Cross has always lingered in humankind. It's risen now in me. Okay, so I'll try and show some examples about how having an afflicted element of the soul is not always a problem. And then I'll also show some ways around this as well. So, and finally we've got Skin of Silver, an epic of the final battle of the Lionsmith with the Remnant Giant and Tyos. So I think we already have Disciplines of the Hammer. So again, this winds up going in the am I willing to double this up pile? Let's impose a bit of order to make sure the easy ones come first. All right. He's an archaeologist. It's a very social campaign. Oh, sorry, I should have also said that Vesper is playing a Rouge. So, I'm going to show the benefit to having the shell-crossed whist, but I'll have to do that in a little bit. I think I do need to deal with the maladies. But before I do that, I do want to prepare for getting the Wormwood Dream back. So I think in this case here, I'll take the Tryst. I will read a book with a confounding parable. So let's read the other line. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. You love Rouge of that. So I was pleasantly surprised by the response to doing the roguelike dev, sort of the... I was pleasantly surprised by the response to the like the tutorials that I ran through, because again, it was just it was just a vanilla application of the the Python tutorial for a roguelike game. But one of the ideas that I had at the end was actually, because I was making so many typos, to make a roguelike around typos called Rouge. So, but Rouge the Bat's actually not a bad name. So, all right, leek soup, a milder taste than onion soup, but no less warming. So that is, I believe, a side dish. No, sorry, a first course. And that has got edge, moon, and nectar. So, we get to see one of the benefits of... I wonder if I... No, there's no way I'm going to be able to fit that on. And I don't think we have a lot of space here either, so we'll put these up in the room for tea. A full belly makes a helpful friend. This beastie is now inclined to cooperate. So we're going to have a chat with Mr. Kill, give him the Wormwood Dream right away. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. Now, here's if we take a look at the elements of the soul that this accepts, right? So it'll take an element of the soul, and that element of the soul in the servant's kitchen range. It's good luck for the villagers to bring little gifts of food to the librarian. That's already become a tradition. But sometimes the librarian wants a hot meal, and these days the librarian is the only entity in the house that can cook. So in this case, you'll notice that it asks for an element of the soul, and it asks for one of these four aspects, grail, heart, nectar, and scale, but it does not specify that the element of the soul can't have an affliction, or a malady, rather. So I can actually cook with this, and because this doesn't get fatigued, I can actually keep cooking over and over and over again. So in this case here, we will add the dripping for another. All right, make an onion soup, a dish with edge, heart, moon, and nectar. And that way I don't need to use elements of the soul here. And this is, I kind of liken this is the gentler game, as Pro kind of sort of grudgingly accepted from the hint. One of the ideas that I really liked from Cultist Simulator was that, you know, you will get things like fear, and they'll be just, you know, immediately perceived as very bad, and, you know, something that you want to avoid, and, you know, or I guess it's not fear, it's dread, and this will be something that can end the game. But eventually you realize that dread also, like, so dread has a few useful things that it can do. It can get rid of fascination, which used to be, before they added the ability of fleeting reminiscences to clear out fascination. Fascination used to be the way that I would usually lose, and so dread was helpful in that regard. But more practically, you know, dread does actually have some aspects, and it can be used in ritual. And so one of the ways that you can get rid of dread, and sometimes you can even want dread, is to actually use them as part of your occult work. And again, I just think that there is something very nice about this idea of taking even the bad things in life and turning them into something that you can work with. You know, and again, obviously the alignment with creativity in Cultist Simulator and the literal world of Dream, I think that's a fairly clear one. But again, like this, everybody's kind of inspirations are they're their own thing, right? Like everybody kind of has their different happy place. Your little paintings full of depression. Just sad little trees. So this, I kind of think, is a milder version of that in Book of Hours. Because in the end, like, Book of Hours is never going to yell at you for not making progress at a certain pace, or it's not going to be upset that, or, you know, it's not going to fail you. It doesn't mean that the game is easy, and it doesn't mean that you can't wind up in a tougher spot than you would necessarily want, but it's never going to be at a point where you lose all of this progress and you have to start over again. But again, in this case here, you do still have, you know, sometimes if you are afflicted, you can be, and this is one thing that's weird for me actually, is I find that sometimes, so often when I have been sad, I've actually been at some of my most productive. And then likewise, when I'm mad about something, that's usually when I do some of my favorite, like I tend to think that that's some of my funniest writing that I've done. So apparently I get much better at satire when I'm mad at something. So I guess in general, I just need to be a bit more angry. But again, like, it's something that I definitely relate to. I think most people can probably relate to. But hello, Tiberiosity. But yeah, in this case here, as a practical matter, there are actually some actions that you can perform with afflicted elements of the soul, as long as you kind of keep an eye out in terms of what the required aspects are. Another aside, you're the only other person who pronounce often with the T, which is decidedly correct. Although I guess I didn't say often. I didn't say it that time. That's it. You know, it's funny. I don't normally think of this stuff, but I get very self-conscious when people mention it. And now we take that back. Sorry, I've been so totally sidetracked now. I think the first one that people pointed out on stream was the way that I said against. And I think that might be a slight Australian thing. But it feels weird to say against. I don't know, against often. What do I want to do? I have these new free... Oh, actually, there's definitely a couple things. So, I'm gonna give up trying to... get the eggs today. I think we're gonna focus on unlocking rooms. But I can go out onto the moor and see if I can find some apples. It is autumn after all. What is the sea seeded today? Oh, without the tea, which is decidedly... Sorry, Oswin. I just you even wrote it. So yeah, another aside. You are the only other person who pronounced often without the T, which is decidedly correct. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. I'll stop now. Okay, I must go stream and have a good... Thank you, Prosciutto Fest. I think it's been like, you've been here for an hour and I've like done nothing in the game. I'm so sorry, but thank you very much. I hope you have a lovely stream. I'm now very self-conscious about my pronunciation. If you could just give me one quick second here. Oh, heck. Oh, and Silver85 says, this game looks simple, but then you open the bottom menu and you've got like 100 options. It is, I mean, the one thing that I like about it, though, is that you get those options one at a time. Like, you kind of have to demonstrate knowledge of certain things before they start really throwing stuff at you. But I agree. I mean, like, it's just because it's a forgiving game doesn't necessarily mean it's simple. And it's one thing I like about it, but I think it's also something that can sometimes catch people by surprise. So I'm just switching over to a laptop here because it has all my passwords. Sorry, I realize this is super compelling viewing here. This won't take too much longer. And Silver says, I know I've been peeking into streams now and then, and my house has just grown so much, I honestly don't know what's going on in this game, but the house is pretty. Well, that's part of the appeal, right? Like, this is about as close as I can imagine to... there's a live event which is hosted by another company, but they did have a kind of a partnership with the developers of this game. So there's this live event called The Locksmith's Dream. And it takes place in Treowen, which is actually mentioned in this game. And the basically you get to go in this like centuries-old manor and sort of experience this live event that takes place in this secret history setting. And so I can tell you, like, from actual first-hand experience, that Book of Hours does a weirdly good job of kind of communicating that feeling of going to this very ancient and sort of very heavily sort of story-laden house, right? A place where lots of stuff has clearly happened. And obviously in the case of the event, like it has a stuff specifically set up for you to experience. But the thing is that you can never really tell what's there for the event and what's there because it's, a centuries-old manor in Wales. And I don't know, I think Book of Hours has actually done a really, really good job of kind of communicating this feeling of being in sort of just this very old place with a lot of history and sort of being able to uncover new and exciting things and learn a little bit more about what's going on. So it's one thing I really like about it. I wanted to take a quick look at Often. Oh, this is interesting. So there's the pronunciation keys on this one actually have multiple entries. I want to hear the American and the UK.
Often. 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 Often.
It's very, very interesting to hear the British one do often and then the American often. Yeah, so it does actually include two different pronunciation keys, one with the T and one with the not. I was actually looking for the etymology. Formed within English by derivation. Variation of oft. Apparently from 1325? Huh. Alright. I learned something. There's a lot that I would actually like to go into, but I realize I've taken too much time on that word now. Let's, so our focus is going to be on Mr. Kill. I do need to get a tryst back at some point. And I probably want to get... I think I want to get another moon memory. So I think in this case I will read Against the Sisterhood of the Knot and the foulness of their depraved customs. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering the farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Alright, let's get some of these elements back. And I've kind of abandoned my effort to clear out these books. However, I do have some plans for that. All right, Honeyscar Jasmine, like a sweet, a dart of sweet fire, sweet-scented night blooming. I think I can make tea from Honeyscar. All right, another sack of vegetables. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. Let's talk to him about Whist. We'll watch for what lies ahead. Boost Winter and Lantern. And finally, third. Okay, so the Herbs and Infusions is effective against corruption. So let's take... this will work. So we'll take 2 wounds, 1 heart first, because that one has a little bit more... Oh, that's right, I need to use an element of the soul too. Okay, well we're just going to set that aside then. The Other Line, one of Samuel Savage's more thoughtful works, an allegorical play about the city Clarity, a city that is also a book, and the sentences which inhabit it. The Lord's Proverbial and the Lord's Disquisitional war in the streets of Clarity, while the punctuants get drunk on ink and supply the jokes, though by Savage's usual standards there aren't very many jokes. The final act sees the Lord's Proverbial unsealing the city Clarity's gate to expel the population into the unknown. The formula that they use for the unsealing is a real one. It can be used with knock and preliminal meter to create a gate sign of power. Alright, so I'm getting this for the moon with the intention of using Edicts Martial to... Actually, I didn't need 2 memories for that, so that's my bad. No! Never again. My assistant and I will be prudent. Okay, we need to give him Solomon's preparation. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. And here we go. So onion soup, just enough tang to tantalize. So edge, 2 heart, moon, and nectar. All right, so that, I believe, is all of the... Sorry, except for the honey-haunted amber pumpkin pie. I believe that is all of the dishes that I've discovered so... No, sorry, apple pie as well. So out of the items, so there's cake batter. I'm actually going to make... just trying to make it a little bit easier for me to organize things. So, apple pie and, well, 2 pies basically. Apple pie and honey-haunted amber pumpkin pie. And then at some point, I'm going to want to make some more teas. So I'll give some other examples about what does and doesn't work. So here, one example might be, okay, well, I want to try and get certain vegetables out of the vegetable sack. Well, in this case, this doesn't work, and that's because in this case it does have the prohibition against maladies. But one thing that I might consider would be if I have a desk that would accept herbs and infusions, so this would require heart or nectar and scale. Which is a tall order, to be completely honest. Yeah, I don't think we have any compatible desks. So this one doesn't take scale. This one does take scale, but it doesn't take heart or nectar. This doesn't take any of them. This one takes heart, but no scale. This takes scale, but no heart. But one of the things that I can do would be, so we have this effective against theoplasmic contamination. So one of the things that I can use the shell-crossed whist with is not just the cooking, but I can take any of the theoplasmed books And because I have an element, I have a skill that can basically annihilate that curse without any other memories, I can just sort of zap these before I heal it. Now, I do actually want to heal this thing before too long, right? But the good news is I have lots of whist, so it's not like I have any... I don't have an immediate need for this improvement. So, the DeWolf method. Some credit to Gideon, others to Ava. Against the Sisterhood of the Knot and the foulness of their depraved customs, Hieronymus Hypnerotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the Sisterhood of the Knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Hieronymus claims that the powers served by the Sisterhood of the Knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the Yew, and the Grail destroyed him as restitution for the destruction of the Axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the Mansus through the Peacock Door. This, Hieronymus insists, is an abomination upon abomination, but then that most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. So one thing I can do here, which might make my life a little easier, is if I take the intuition and the confounding parable, I believe I can combine that with the Edicts Martial. Now in future what I'm going to want to do is I'll just take a Trist Edicts Martial confounding parable, so that would be 8 and 10. Beth kind of sort of does not like the Peacock Door. Is this because you need the Frangiclave or the mirrors for it? But anyways, we got these memories already. We might as well use them. This is a replacement Wormwood Dream for Mr. Kell. Look how happy it is opening and closing. Better now. All right. So it's worth taking a minute to decide whether or not I find it worthwhile to open up any more, or to restore any more elements of the soul. I think there's a reasonable argument to bring a core back so that I can fix one of the books. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal in a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. Oh, fair enough. Apparently there are too many strong opinions on the Peacock Door. I don't recognize when people are not directly referring to the game in chat. Or, well, you know what I mean. Okay. Serpentinite slab is not... does not spark joy. I'm trying to think of the place to put it. Nope, this'll fit. The grey-green root rock of the Cornish coast. And sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Down to the Grushans. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. So they're up to 14. Let's get them to 15. Now I can't recall, excuse me, if this driftwood does do the trick. Nope, wait, that's moon. I almost made a terrible mistake there. New blank. A wood sacred to the Malachite, who is also called the ring yew, but also the tree that the dead pass in the dark. Additional supplies. I can offer my assistant any suitable timber I have lying around. This will increase their aspects. They'll keep any of the wood that's left over. I may wind up just using this Foss to make some money in the end. I might have been able to read the Concursum diaries, but it's a little late in the day. So I think I'll save that for tomorrow. The problem with a direct approach to theoplasmic attenuation is that if we call on any of the hours, we may end up theoplasmed worse than when we started, so we need to go carefully. Chionic theoplasma contamination has been removed, so this is exercises in the continuity of self. I have a feeling this is going to start crowding up the books. We don't have any winter yet. And I think in this case, I'm just going to keep... I might as well just keep doing this because I can get through a lot of curses reasonably quickly this way. So, Memory of Gods. DeWolf method. Some credit it to Gideon, others to Ava. Let it clutter up their shelves. Alright, so let's just talk with Mr. Kill. We're not in any particular rush to... to open up this room, so we'll see what memories we can get. Better now. Now, as far as getting rid of the Keeper Skin goes, let's, again, take care of 2 wounds, 1 heart. Add the Gale. And herbs and infusions. Wrong one. Okay, so I need to find something with Sky or Heart. Otherwise I am wasting time. There we go. The 5th Eye Curse. Someone unhelpfully placed a curse which may tear open the unwilling eye of the soul. So, let's find something that can work against curses. Not that. Okay, Sacralamea. Now, the problem with these is that they don't have a heart component. So Sacralamea, we have Tridesma Hyra. We have Sacrosolus Invicti. So my other alternative here, I think I can get a bit lucky. So if we do Sacralamea, and I believe Fusine has 2 heart. Ahaha. It has to be Kilisimi. Okay. I was hoping not to use up this ink, but I guess I have kind of an unlimited supply soon, so... Wrong book. Lift the 5th Eye Curse. The principle of heart can abate the curse's malice. There's a cruder technique that relies on winter, but that's how you end up with a chionic theoplasma problem. Oh, yes. No, that's a big one, actually. I'll show you how you can sort of know... I'll show you how you can know the difference, Oswin. Just give me one quick second here. This one's a special one for Mr. Kill, but it's a very helpful one. So, Oriflammes, thanks you for your custom. And I'll just double check that we're talking about the same thing. Oh dear, I left the sweet bones wide open. Okay, let me just double check on the curses that I'm looking at. So, a curse with knock. And again, I don't think we have any I don't think we have any knock to throw at this. Theoplasma with Forge. Okay, we've got the Meniscate Reflection. So if I combine that with metal and a... Okay, yeah, no, we're fine. We actually don't even really need the memory for that. But if I do bring the memory in, so the 2 Forge memory, so a Foresight... then I add a Mortar and Pestle. Okay, yeah, we can get rid of that with Meniscate Reflection, so that's fine. Witchworm 7 Winter. I gotta find the one that handles infestations. I don't think any of these use winter. But then again, we do have the Wormwood Dream we can throw at that, so that, I suppose, has its own solution. So I think most of these, it's actually really the Keeper Skin that's the tricky one, and the Keeper Skin's the first one that we got rid of. So given enough time, we'll be able to clear all of these out. I think it's just a question of finding the will to take the time. And in this case, I think I am. But I'm going to make the most of my sickness, I think. So with all that said and done, what would I do if I brought back an element of the soul? Well, I could do some more gardening. I think that's reason enough. And then I'll make back some of the money with the Faust. Let us hope it's equally possible to forget this again. If there are laws which apply only in Dream, then it must also be that there are crimes which can only be committed there. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? Okay, so, in terms of assistance. So you'll see that there's some markers here. A tamer of trees, a worker of woods, a consigner of cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry, which, to my reading, is why he has the scale, or the sky here. So with the talk verb, we can say to talk to someone else. Usually we can put an assistance, we can put employable, we can put a beast, and we can put a visitor in this slot. So in this case, Mr. Kill fits the bill. Talk to Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. Add something to enhance Mr. Kill's effectiveness for the day, or just talk. Unlike some assistants, Mr. Kill can make use of wood. So when you say combine assistance with objects, this is what the collaborate slot is for, and so it'll actually give you a checklist. Now you can only do one of each kind, and you're not allowed to use fatigued or malady elements of the soul. But in this case, work alongside them or provide something they can use. So you can add an element of the soul, you can add a beverage, you can add a memory. In the case of Mr. Kill, not other people normally, but you can add wood, you can add sustenance, and then you can add a tool. Now, not every tool is going to help. So for instance, if I was using Mr. Kill for his sky, then Baron Silence's Astrolabe would be helpful here. But so far as I can tell, there is not a winter... I don't believe there is a winter tool in the game. But again, you can use one of each, and that's one of the ways that you can get them to the level that you need. So when you say I didn't realize you could combine assistance with objects, I'm not sure if you're referring to the collaborate slot in general, or if it was specifically something like wood in this case. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And Mrs. Kill will take fabric. and Denzel will take metal. And then I believe there are special hires that will take paint, fuel, and I'm sure there are others, but I'm forgetting offhand. All right, I'm going to keep talking with Mr. Kill to see if we can get more memories. So Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for the gossip. And I may take a small break for some tea. I'm actually rather happy that you can make Blue Crown tea because it's good for sky in winter. Also nectar, but there are better ways of getting nectar actually. Right, in Memory of Gods, the problem with the direct approaches to theoplasmic attenuation is that if we call on any of the hours, we may end up theoplasmed worse than when we started, so we need to go carefully. This is the 12 section. Okay, it's time for overflow. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? This we might try to hang on to. And again, at this point, there's really no reason for me not to take advantage of the curse removal here. So I'll do that. I'll also probably do enough cooking for a salon, and then we can think about our next steps. Lift the fifth eye curse. When the sun was always red and low, we needed all our eyes. Now glory enters mercilessly if we open them unwisely. The fifth eye curse has been lifted. So the messenger awaiting her destination. That's a 16 forge. Pretty high level book. Better now. Alright, so this was so I could get some more Honeyscar Jasmine for reasons that will become apparent in just a moment. Alright, I think the gossip is sufficient, so we are resting in the librarian's quarters, which can take gossip. More importantly, we do want to read the Concursum Diaries, which has 8 rows. So in this case, we kind of have what we need. So we've got the Fluttering Crypt. The darkness here beats with wings. Bats? Sound is more like birds, but there is a timpani quality that suggests more bones than feathers. One more step, and I sense the possibility of talons. Now, I would like to get some more Solomon's Preparation, but I actually don't have a lot of Ava's locks hanging around, so I'll probably start using my Tryst and my Tryst and my Fet to check the moor and the and Crowcross Sands. Okay, so the 3 and the 3 Vatican manuscript. There must be order. Now let's just take a look here and see if there's anything else that I can do with... Oh, actually I've messed up. Um, I was going to use the Fost to earn some money, but if the sun's gone down, it's too late for that. I don't think I have a 30-second thing for me to do either. So I will just accept that life is sometimes has disappointments, and I will know better for next time. Okay, so what I want to try and do right now is figure out how I can get rid of... So I think we already settled that there wasn't a way for me to combine the shell-crossed Whist. 7 Winter, if I combine that with a Wormwood Dream, that's actually quite straightforward to get rid of. Right, it was the Chionic Theoplasma, but I need the Forge memory for that. Well, I'll take my chances. I mean, so the worst thing that happens is I lose the Fost for the day, but I would, like, it's not that hard for me to get it back. So, I think this is the Foresight. I'm going to read Bancroft Diaries because it puts a smile on my face. Oh, but I should be making use of the Affliction. Right, so I want to see if I can make Honey Scar Tea. I can make Honey Scar Tea, a hot drink with forge, nectar, and rose. So I think what I'm going to do when I'm not... Oh, you know what? I was thinking I could use the scale, but the catch is that I don't think I have a scale and forge desk I can do that at. So I just sort of shot my Fost for no good reason. Oh, we've got a delivery. Unwrap, unbox, unleash. And here we have the Columbic Crypt. Saint Columba, with 12 companions, brought the word of the unconquered sun to Scotland, where he founded a monastery on the blessed Isle of Iona. There he died, and there his bones remained until the Northmen came. But in Cornwall they speak of his 13th companion, a hybrid beauty called Rowena, who was perhaps his tutor, perhaps his seducer, or perhaps his daughter. At his death, the monks sought to stone her for her impurities. She bore Columba's bones away so that the monks would not have them, substituting, out of tact or mischief, the bones of a horse. She brought the bones to a hidden isle, where she made a double foundation of nuns and monks, and became its first abbess. But she would not admit none to her order who was a virgin, nor innocent of any crime. Since then, the isle has been a refuge for all the world might consider impure. So not too much in this individual room. There is the Columbic sarcophagus. Sarcophagus, the eater of flesh. No bones remain, but the marble is chilly with power. So Moth and Winter. We have the sealed vault, 14 knock, 14 scale. We have the rattling tunnels, which is another 15 Winter or 15 Grail. Or we can try easier things like the crystallized chamber. I think there was one more Winter. I think it was 13 Winter for the Ravaged Cellar. Okay, so I have a couple of priorities for today. One of them is going to be to try and get the... We're going to sort of try and get the eggs from Tuppence and Terrence. And that's just so I can have some stock. I don't have, like, immediate uses for them right now. I would also like to read the book. So with the Concursum Diaries, let me just double check what I've got. So, yeah, 3 is my best. So that's 5, and then 7. Yes, with the Lunar Globe, we should be able to read the text. So here we'll use Rhyme and Remembrance. For the more we'll use... We really only have the 1 FET to work with, although I may employ the core. But, I mean, then again, there's a trade-off, right? If I do that, then I don't have it for the gardening. I'll think about that. What kind of rows do I have? I have no luck at all. All right. Can't use Inks of Power. Preliminal meter it is. Okay. So I have some time before I get the memory back from sleep, so that's about 6 seconds. Let's get the egg. Time with the beastie. Offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. And I think for that we will get something out of the garden. Nope. Gather in autumn, carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. Okay, so we'll say the tryst is for Crowcross Sands. The FET is for the book now. Funnily enough, I think I can actually cure this curse. No, this was the knock one. Yeah, so I just need to add the mortar and pestle, or... Well, actually, let's have some fun with this. We'll use spanners to clear it out. So this is Actinic Theoplasma. This book has suffered the attention of one of the bright names or hours, the gods from light. This contamination can affect your Faust and Tryst and spread to nearby objects. You can remove it with a skill that's effective against theoplasmic contamination if you provide at least 7 forge. So the Westcott method, the process has been refined over the years and no longer requires tobacco smoke, if indeed it ever really did. So, spanners. When you need them, you need them. Let's think about the next steps. So I don't have any Shapt. There's a fairly good argument for me to try and get that sooner so I can read the Gospel of Zacchaeus. You know what? I think probably it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to just get rid of the infestation. Assuming I ever remember what skill. I want to double check that I... Yep, no, we don't have anything else. The softest penumbra of the Madrigad's light, invoked carefully through the white flower of the Watchman's tree, drives witchworms to twitching death. So we'll do the same. I will need... I guess I need to give up one of the Tryst for that. I'll give up a Whist to be able to... Actually, you know what? Arab might be a good idea here. So we'll get the confounding parable again. And from that, we'll read Locksmith Stream Portions and Proportions. And I guess the core and the health, at this point, it's more of a question of what do I... Ooh, a foggy day. I don't think I'll have what it takes to clear out the Gospel of Zacchaeus, but let's at least double check. So Sacralamea, Sacrosolus, Invicti. Yeah, so none of these have knock. I don't have an element of the soul, so it would rest on my ability to get a lot of knock in an ink, which I can't do right now. Although this fog at least allows me to... So for this time around, I didn't need to use a tryst, which is nice. So recall a forgotten crime of moon and winter. I'm also not making money at the Sweet Bones right now, so let's get that done. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Okay, let me just make a note here of the Honey Scar Jasmine tea. And that has 2 forge, nectar, and rose. Let's find a good place for a tea. Yeah, this'll do. And then I think the Fragrant Chalice also has a recipe like that, so... Yep, there it is. Make Fragrant Chalice tea, a hot drink with grail and nectar. I didn't realize I should be working and making money instead of waiting for the fat bill to come in. Well, you can. You don't have to. But what... So the logic that I have behind it here, especially because I have relatively few elements of the soul, the logic that I have is this. If I use a Wist, a Core, a Health, a Metal, a Shapt, or a Faust, I think that's all of them. But basically, as long as it's not Trist or Fet, might be the other way of looking at it, is that you get a 6 pence for your work. That's uses up a minute. So what happens here? Well, you fatigue an element of the soul, and you get 6 pence. But the other way of looking at it is, okay, you do that. So what happens if you what happens when you go to the Sweet Bones and you instead spend money to restore an element of the soul? Well, that will cost a 2 pence. So if nothing else, you are up a net 4. And so the other way of looking at it is if you start the day working at the Sweet Bones, you essentially get yourself 3 more uses of your elements of the soul, assuming that you want that and assuming that you have the time to do that. Obviously, if in the end you only wind up taking that action, later on in the day, that's maybe not as helpful. But what I've found kind of helpful for myself is that it's like, okay, well, if I'm not using it right away, I can sort of cycle through the Sweet Bones. I can make some 6 pences. And then what that's just doing is it means later on, maybe in a season where I do really need to use the elements of the soul, all that I'm really doing is I'm sort of shifting the effort in a season where I don't need to use a lot of things with my elements of the soul, I'm shifting all of that effort to the future where I want to be restoring a bunch of elements of the soul one after the other. That's kind of my logic behind it. Okay, the Bancroft Diaries. Lord Franklin Bancroft was initiated into the arts of the flower maker by the Rose Witch Fiona Ayrshire. He rose to become a society provider of occult services and secret pleasures before his abrupt disappearance in 1790. Bancroft seems to have been a talented adept, but devoted his energies to frustratingly whimsical projects, arranging grape-fetching races between Mansa spirits, teaching percussagants to juggle, and conjuring storms of imaginary blossoms for the Rose Witch Ayrshire, who resolutely refused ever to couple with him. Bancroft spends 20 pages bemoaning this last. The mantra here recorded is a high and exacting magic which can be used to pledge one's spirit to the watchman, beginning an ascent to the house. Bancroft boasts of his ability to recite it when in his cups. He also had it set to music for a performance with fireworks at Vauxhall Gardens. Hey, ever-waiting sleeper, how are you doing? Question for you. What is the correct pronunciation of the word Often? I've done 2 versions to keep everyone equally unhappy. Oswin had a comment, so I've turned this into a new greeting to ask. I was a little surprised, so I went my usual resource. So there's a library where I work. I actually have been very lucky. Like the two jobs that I've had here, both have work libraries. But I was a little disappointed to find out they advertised at work access to the Oxford English Dictionary, but they do not, in fact, give access to the Oxford English Dictionary there anymore. It was an outdated link. I do, however, have access to it through my local library, like the municipal library. So I am one of those nerds that does like to go and look up the word. And I particularly like something like my one small regret is I don't have a proper like etymological physical dictionary. That's why I like the online one. But it is nice to have a physical dictionary. The thing that's nice about a physical dictionary, and this is the same reason why it's nice to go to a library as opposed to have a digital library, is that you get something out of walking through all the different shelves. It's why they've renovated the closest library to where I am, and I don't like it that much because they don't have a lot of room for books. And generally the way that it's shelved is sort of this very open concept sort of setup. So there's not that much to browse. It's actually also why I dislike the local book chain. Now, at least in the case of local book chains, like they're trying to manage their inventory as well. They've got like the whole merchant problem to deal with. But the thing is that the inefficiency of that search is something that is, in my opinion, valuable, right? It's by going through those sections that you don't normally go through and, seeing a cover that looks interesting or seeing a title that catches your fancy, like that's the real value. And this is why I still like, where I can, going through a physical dictionary. Now, I don't have like 11 volumes. I don't want to have 11 volumes of, the Oxford English Dictionary that I cart around with me to be able to just in case I need to see. But there's something nice about specifically the Oxford English Dictionary as opposed to just looking it up online, because again, you have etymology and you have pronunciation is something that you get from a lot of different sources. That's not unique to online. But when we looked up often/often, it turns out that they did actually allow for both pronunciations. And I can see the arguments both ways, because I think most people would agree that oft, OFT would have the T pronounced. And so I suspect the people who will make the connection for oft and often would say, well, just say often then. But on the other hand, like, there's a ton of other words where you don't necessarily pronounce them the same way as their as the words that they're composed of. So yes, often. Everyone says that, right? I will die on this hill. No, it's a fair point. I was looking up the linguistic reason for often's differing pronunciation, and the best that I could find was that young people are omitting the medial T. I was not satisfied with this. I want more info. All right, let me see if I can bring up the oracle on this. So when I look at the full record... sorry, I'm all tied up. I may take a small tea break on this, by the way, after this. So, summary formed within English by derivation. Edmonds English oft. Oft variant of oft, probably after Selden variant of seldom. Often is less commonly used than oft until the 16th century. Several orthopists? I want to see that word. The correct or accepted pronunciation of words. All right. Of the 16th and 17th centuries, including Hart, Bullicar, Robinson, Gill, and Hodges, give a pronunciation with medial T. Others, including Coles, Young, Strong, and Brown, record a pronunciation without T, which, despite its use in the 16th century by Elizabeth I, seems to have been avoided by careful speakers in the 17th century. See E.J. Dobson, English Pronunciation, 1500-1700, second edition, 1968. Loss of T after F occurs in other cases. Compare soften. Sorry. Compare soften and also raft, haft. I don't quite follow that one because they clearly have the T's at the end. Unless I'm pronouncing, is it Raf? The pronunciation with T has frequently been considered to be a hypercorrection in recent times. See, for example, H.W. Fowler, Modern English Usage, 1926. Interesting. So when I was just trying to get a read on this, so it says others including Coles, Young, Strong, and Brown record a pronunciation without T, which, despite its use in the 16th century by Elizabeth I, seems to have been avoided by careful speakers in the 17th century. Which I take to mean that Elizabeth I was unique in her time in saying often, and that's good enough for me. Needle T is omitted in a few contexts, but usually just gets a tap or glottal stop. Often just gets omitted completely. Or what we can all do is we can just switch to oft. This is like me avoiding semicolons by completely rewriting my sentences because I'm scared of them. All right, dead bird. Pheasant, roast it or add butter if you intend to jug it. This thing is kind of funny to you because English is not your first language, so some words are kind of hard because of your accent. Yeah, actually, I mean, this is one of the big appeals of the Weather Factory games. Are some people actually use them to learn English, which I'm delighted by. I use them as a reminder in terms of how disastrous my use of the the language I was born with is. But I'll do my best. I'll try and get better. You know what you do? You use the semicolon anyways. Who else knows? They'll think you're amazing. I actually did have a bit of I have to peer review some stuff where I'm at, and I kind of like fessed up with my coworker. I said, "Is like, look, I'm not gonna lie. The semicolon scares me. I had an English teacher that basically scared me off of semicolons, despite the fact that they really seem to be appropriate for the way that I speak and the way that I tend to think. But I said, you know, what I'm seeing here does not seem to meet the standards that I see. So like, I kind of know enough to be able to give advice in terms of the writing and say, I'm not entirely sure this is justified here and have it be followed, but I still feel quite uncomfortable using it in my own writing. Thank you very much for hanging out, Kite. And what was the skeleton's favorite snack again? A pleasure to see. Pleasure to have you as always, and I'm sure we will figure out Outlast time or other diversions. Next time Momo and you are in the channel, we have to ask the often question. Okay, sorry, I'm easily distracted tonight. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep, so I get this is like the streamer equivalent of fascination. Okay, so we have a bunch of food. I'm definitely going to make a... Oh, I don't have grapes. All right. Well, that's fine. We'll wait for another season. I'm slightly tempted to get some more vegetables. I need a minute to think. Okay. So I'm currently reading the Concursum Diaries. Now I actually don't remember I think Path and Pilgrim might actually have a scale element to it. You love listening to this pretending like you're not playing Book of Hours. It makes for a fun bedtime story. You mean are you talking about like the conversations we're having or Book of Hours itself? Because Book of Hours does actually have a really charming story to it. We just need to get higher to see more. All right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Actually, out of curiosity, Oswin, based on where you've gone, how much do you know about sort of the DeWolfs and some of the different librarians in the story? Like, have you gotten to some of the other, like the Solar Period or the Curia? Because the Lighthouse Institute, so behind the scenes, the Curia of the Isle is long gone. Once it helped preserve a little knowledge and a kind of safety here in Brandkrug and established the position of librarian. Rowena, secretary persistent of the Curia, a complex entity who has long protected Hush House, is both exhausted and compromised, and so it's time for the librarian to return the favor and establish a successor to the Curia. Not much right now. Nothing I read is making sense to you right now. It definitely, so it takes a little bit, but things will eventually come into place. There is a reason why, I mean, obviously being able to just read the text is nice on its own. But there will be some bits and pieces that you get. So I will give you, I'm going to give you a few pointers, but I'm not going to close the loop. So there is a story of a local cunning man, Red William. And there is this will be related to the DeWolfs, and you'll, from the descriptions of the rooms, you'll get a bit of an idea of the DeWolfs. From some of the books, you'll get some ideas of the DeWolfs. But there is also a specific room. I'm actually going to point out the room here, but I'm not going to click on it. There's a mention here about the DeWolfs. But depending on some of the books that you read, and because the books are randomly distributed, sometimes you may not get all of the books that are relevant to this. But there are alternative versions of the story of what happened to Red William, and possibly even why things happened to Red William. And I can never say there are guarantees in your playthrough, because there's actually ways to complete this game very quickly. But I'm willing to guess, in your particular playthrough, you will have some, maybe not resolution, but at least you will have another perspective on those rumors and that story. So one room that comes up is here. Books will also give you some indications. And then there is something later that will provide some extra information. I just happen to think that's a nice little example of how some of the material in the game, there are things that you'll read at the start and you won't, they'll make sense later. Another example would be, I believe the game starts you off saying that you are restoring Hush House after a fire, but there's not really a lot of evidence of a fire. That's not necessarily true for the whole game. We've definitely gotten to some parts where there is fire, or there's evidence that there has been some fire. And you will definitely find out more about what happened. So that's, that on its own is sort of just progressing through the house and getting a bit of an idea. Another example would be, there's a mention of the new king, right? It's the 1930s. There's the Restoration. Now, I may not be the best historian, but I definitely don't remember hearing about a restoration of the 1930s. And so I will say that there are conditions in this game under which you can actually learn the name of the new king. So, but again, like, those are some examples. I really just wanted to keep the Red William one because that's one where you actually can combine a few different pieces of information over the course of the playthrough. But even things that, you read about in the description of the Sweet Bones or the very opening text of the game, there are some seeds that are planted that really get paid off quite a bit later on. But again, the lighthouse, this isn't in the base game. This will be added in the expansion. But this thing I'm kind of excited by because there's something really neat about this game. There's something nice about the process of kind of going through all of these rooms and seeing sort of what's unlocked behind them, learning a little bit more about the house as you go through. But also just sort of hearing the story of what happened, who these people were, You've got the baronial period, the Curia period, and the nocturnal period moving forward, and then you'll be introducing a new, kind of a new chapter, really, by making a successor to the Curia. Do you have to start over if you get the House of Light expansion? No. So I probably wasn't very clear on this. So let's say, you're mid playthrough. Now, some people just want to start over because, they want a clean slate. And I'm absolutely not going to, I'm not going to tell them they're doing a bad thing doing that, right? Everybody kind of has something that they're interested in. And sometimes it's just fun to start a new session. But the integration into the game is so far that in addition to just giving you new stuff to do, the decisions that you have made in the stories, so they've added sort of these extensions to the stories in the game. So for instance, we've done the insinuating filaments. Well, sorry, the insinuating filaments is after we did the Gladwin Lake business. And then we've got Abecassis. And we completed the Lytirian. But basically, in the base game, I don't think this constellation is in your version of the game yet. But essentially what happens is when you finish those events, so I'm currently on the Affair of the Dappled Rose, but in this case here, when you complete this, when you've gone through all of the potential visitors who will visit, there will be a further story that you can pursue. So, in this case, I'll take the example of what is this called? I'm forgetting the name offhand, but there's a Labite, and we satisfied Strathcoy, Azida, Eladim, Kaima, and Arthur Moore. And if we want to know what happened, we can invite Arthur back and we can sort of hear what happens. In the base game, there's nothing else that happens to those stories. Sort of you get to hear a little bit about what's happening in the rest of the world, and then the story is done. And in this case here, there can be further developments, which will affect how people develop in this world. One example actually is that we've got... I feel that this is okay because there's actually different ways to... Well, okay, I'll leave it for people. There is a particular path that I've gone for the... it's the Shroud at Gladwin Lake. Now, there are a few different paths that you can go down. I'm happy to talk about the one that I've chosen for myself, because there's still... Like, there are a couple of ways that this can still go, and you may not even necessarily go down the path that I've chosen. So I'll maybe get a quick poll from people, especially because I need to get a quick tea break anyway. Would people prefer to go in without any knowledge about where that particular story can go? Or would you like to see what my particular journey has taken me to? I'm kind of indifferent one way or the other because I don't think I'm going to wind up pursuing this today. But again, I'm interested in seeing whether or not people have any strong feelings about... You'd like to see? Okay. I was slightly inclined towards reading it out, but I just wanted to see if there was anybody who would feel particularly hard done by if I move on. So here's what I'll do. This one, so this is an example of a completed one where we haven't taken any action whatsoever. So we have the option of bringing Arthur Moore. There might be other versions of this where there are other participants that I can bring in, and there'll be a different encounter. But right now, our only option right now seems to be Arthur for one reason or another. So we can invite them. And in addition to taking part in a salon, we might try and find out what happened with Abecassis the Labite. Yeah, I'm inclined on that one. Like I think people tend to freak out a little too much on spoilers, to be completely honest. But I also recognize that there's a little bit of an asymmetry in the fact that like people will feel quite upset if there was something that they did want to be surprised by. And most of the time I can make a point without going into it. So I always kind of want to give people the option of sort of opting out or say, no, I really don't want to see where this is going. But in this particular case here, right, like this is a middle path. So what I'm going to be showing you here, this one, normally you'll have more than one option. And this one I definitely did. So I don't have the full, I don't have the full description in terms of the previous step, but the insinuating filaments, the business at Gladwin Lake was the work of the Ostorium, a noble institution that preserves what would not otherwise be preserved, or a creepy pack of Peruvian fungus wizards, depending on preference. Intentionally or not, this has brought the Ostorium and the Suppression Bureau into a new alliance to the great unhappiness of Connie Lee. So Connie Lee is one of your antagonists in Cultist Simulator, but she's back. And in this case here, if you talk with Connie, she expresses doubts about the Suppression Bureau. And the game, I think, is pretty clear in the description. We don't have her here for the conversation, but I think the game is quite clear that depending on the book that you give her, she may choose to abandon the Suppression Bureau, or she may choose to stay. And I think it says that, I think it does eliminate her as somebody who might, like, I think if she leaves the Suppression Bureau, I don't believe she will come on further events, although I think it says she may come up at other points. I don't know, like, there's a certain conservatism in the choice because I don't want to lose Connie. She seems like an interesting character, and we had a little bit of a story developing with Zachary Wakefield. But on the other hand, I'm probably on the creepy pack of Peruvian fungus wizards end of the spectrum in terms of describing the Ostorium. And so the idea of the Suppression Bureau aligning with them doesn't strike me as a particularly good thing. Or I can play Pontius Pilate and conclude. But yeah, so this is an example here where, you know, in addition to the Salon, it actually makes sense to bring Connie back, specifically because I want to see where this goes, and this may actually wind up affecting later decisions, or it may affect who wants to join the Lighthouse Institute and why. And I actually don't know where the Connie one is going to go, because it doesn't say, you know, if you give Connie book X as opposed to book Y, you know, she'll be happy about that or she won't be happy about that. We don't have a lot of candidates for the Suppression Bureau, to be completely honest. So, yeah, that's a bit of an example. So my understanding is that if you've already done some events, you will have some of those unlocked. Now you'll still have to get I think you have to give people books to get them to give you their cards, so that you can invite them back. But basically, if you're mid-game, you'll have all of your rooms opened, but you will have you'll already have some progress on these various stories, and you'll be able to interact with people and sort of see the consequences as they go by. So that's a long way of just saying that you absolutely do not need to start over. And in fact, this DLC seems to have been designed, and in fact, the base game seems to have been designed in such a way that you can be in progress and have House of Light come out and just move over into the new stuff right away. But I definitely know on the subreddit there are quite a few people who just say, you know, I want to start over. And I've always sort of figured that I can speak to my own experience, which is to say, definitely you don't have to. But I think I think there's plenty of sense in letting people, you know, make the decisions for themselves in terms of whether or not it's something they want to do. On that note, I have been yapping, so I'm going to take a quick pause. I don't have that much more time on the stream tonight, but I think I'm going to get a little bit of tea. If nothing else, just kind of shake the cobwebs out, and then we'll make some progress. I'm actually quite happy that almost everything on my recipe collection's been finished. I may not be able to get the I may not be able to get my afflicted element of the soul back, Oswin, just because it is actually very helpful for me to um, have it afflicted. Like I've been able to make a bunch of dishes, and I figure what I can maybe do is prepare for the salon for the next like the next session. So basically make a whole bunch of inks to invite everybody and, make all of the dishes, decide the room. Like I'm going to get my party planning done right now. And I figure that having an afflicted element of the soul will help me out. And then I'll be able to heal it. But I figure I can at least show you how I would go about that, just to give you a little bit of an idea. But before any of that happens, I am going to take a very small break. If you've been here since the start, first of all, thank you. And second of all, I will, like I said, I'm going to have a bit of a stretch, so I encourage you to do it as well. I know it usually takes a little longer than I plan, just because I need to get the kettle boiling, but I will be back as soon as I can. But until then, either enjoy a word from our sponsors or perhaps get a cup of tea yourself. We'll see you in a little bit. So every time I say I shouldn't get the tea in the dark, and every time I get the tea in the dark, and every time I usually wind up with a little hot water on me. But there you go. Okay, so let's finish off strong. Let's find some tasks that I want to do. So let's say the health gets set aside until we know. Yeah, actually, you know what? Really, I think I should probably just sit on my elements of the soul until we have a clearer idea of what's happening today. So we'll wait for. I get tea in the light and wonder how am I spilling. I think it's just because I fill the mug a little too much. For those of you that haven't been subjected to the George Orwell tea essay, we can end on that if you want. Oh, actually, here's one for you, Oswin. Have you seen the in-universe letters that are in the game? I might see if I can read Magister Hokebald's letter without giggling or stumbling over the words. You don't think so? Okay. Yeah, let's keep going with the cheek and offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. And, okay, quell the witchworm contamination. Horrible little things. I can be glad that their screams are almost inaudible. So, desiccated witchworms, nasty little things, but almost safe when they're dead. So that will go... Ugh. I do actually want to read this one just because I don't think I've encountered it before. Right, the sun is gold, the forge is red. The actinic theoplasma contamination has been removed. So Chandler's Wish, that was a 12, so we're adding it to the overflow. That one was Inks of Revelation. So this one's a bit of a tough one because I don't know how high I want to take Inks of Revelation quite yet. But we will collect these. Hello, Takri. How are you doing? The Locksmith Stream, Portions and Proportions. The second... I did not realize that it was almost 2 years. Thank you very much for continuing to subscribe, Kri. I really appreciate that. Obviously, I still remember, and actually I'm still occasionally finding comments on YouTube that I hadn't replied to. So I'm definitely happy to see you regardless of the sub status. But sub status helps too. So thank you very much. I hope you're doing well tonight. The Locksmith Stream, Portions and Proportions, the second volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. The frontispiece has been slashed with a razor. In this volume, Galmier records fewer dreams and explicates more on her own elaborate theories. We see this again and again. What is below can't escape what is above. The finest artisans all dream of the white door in the end. I'm no artisan, only a scholar. I think there's a secret that all these artisans know, but I think that secret is only half the story. So we got a confounding parable for this. So I think this was originally for me to get the Wormwood dream, but of course we've already got that. Now, if I want to use the Wormwood Dream again, we can use that to clear out the Victory of Crowns. I think that's actually worthwhile. So I'll restore my Whist immediately following. Alright, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. I don't think it's a terrible thing that we're taking the time to clear out all of the different curses on the books. So you are apparently not allowed to have 3 D&D groups. Your Monday group is on indefinite hiatus. I don't recall which one is which. I also don't think I knew 3. I think I only knew about 2. But I am... that sounds disappointing in some ways, so I am sorry about that, but it also sounds like a little bit of a relief in other senses, so... I hope you are able to either rest up, or that you are able to find a replacement for your time, but... I know for my own part, I probably need need more rest than anything. All right, Fragrant Chalice Tea. This, there's a Blake once declared, is the color of my heart. So I'm going to just adjust my note here. And 2 Grail, 1 Nectar. So I guess it's not that much different from Witching to Sane. This is your Archaeologist Rouge. So I feel like if we'll put this in the Flood Gallery. There's a Blake, 7th librarian of the house, extended this space, decorating it with semi-precious materials and filling it with the finest art Hush House's money could buy. Of course, after her enthusiasms brought the house to the brink of penury, much of it had to be sold off. Monday was the original, your first, went 4 years before just now fizzling. Thursday is the one you run every other week. And Tuesday was the new one. I am sad over the lack of Monday games. Well, I'm imagining, too, that would mean that you probably had a pretty consistent... you probably had a pretty consistent group going on that one, so I can definitely understand. I know you've definitely been one to sort of encourage me to... Maybe not encourage, but making me sort of wish that I did more tabletop, so... All right, let's take a quick account. So I don't think there's anything I can do about the Gospel of Zacchaeus with the scale. We already know we need the winter for the Victory of Crowns. And that's one where I would want to use the Whist. So... Peribiot. Actually, I'm going to do something slightly annoying. I actually want to account for what I have in the house and what I don't. So I've got Blue Crown Tea, Honey Scar Jasmine Tea, Fragrant Chalice Tea. All of those are accounted for in the house. Blackberries and Rose Hips. Now, Rose Hips I don't actually seem... Oh, hang on. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Boiled egg. I don't think we have cold pheasant with grape salad, so that's going to be on the list of things to make. A dark stuffed marrow, I think we have here, or stuffed dark marrow. I'm pretty sure we have fried mushrooms on toast, but let me just confirm that here. Definitely have the ham and cheese toasty. I believe we have the pale stuffed marrow as well. This is the golden, the acrid. Oh, we don't, so we can make a new one. I also think we're missing pilchards on toast, which is funny because I remember the crunch line. So I guess they would be in the refectory if they were in anything. Oh, yep, there they are. Triply crunchy. We do have plums. We do have rosehips. We do have the stuffed acrid marrow and the golden marrow. Do have scrambled egg, wali au jus, do have onion soup, do have leek soup, do have pickled mushrooms, technically don't have cake batter right now, or cream sugar. We have lots of dough. Don't have a meringue at the moment, do have potatoes. Do have rosehip jam. Do not have a basket of apples. Do have a, I believe that is a stuffed dark marrow as opposed to a dark stuffed marrow. Acrid, golden, dark. Do have game pie, do have ham and egg casserole, do have a ham and potato bake, do have jugged pheasant, do have king's luck pie, do have marinated roast beef, do not have a stuffed pale marrow, do have pickled mushrooms. I know it sounds like duplicates, that's because some of them fulfill multiple roles. Pumpkin pie, I think, is downstairs. Yep. I believe we have a roast pheasant in the kitchen, or not the kitchen, but yeah, we do have roast pheasant. Sea pie. Now that I don't think we have. Now we have game pie. Don't have stargazy pie. Actually, I'm going to just double check something here. So it's dough and beef that I would be combining on this one. Okay, so that's a forge one. I think it's fair to say I don't actually have this one. Steamed spring vegetable pie, I'm pretty sure is... I can't remember 100% the room, but... yeah. We do have the stuffed acrid marrow, do have the golden marrow. Do have the vegetable stew, do have pickled pilchards, do have apple charlotta, do have... Wait, the baked pear meringue. I don't think I have that. We have the walls of yeast. Okay, I'll say a false on that one. Do have the sponge cake. Do have the Cornish honey cake. Not so sure about the floating island. So apple charlotta. I feel like I put the floating island in... one of these rooms. I thought there was something where the walls of Ys used to be. But then the question is, well, where did it wind up? It's not that helpful to speculate. Yeah, I'm going to go with a false on that. If nothing else, it's at least reducing... okay, definitely have fudge, definitely have Madeira cake. We don't have the orange jumble. Do have pear pie. Do have plum croutons. Do have the rosehip jam sponge cake and the toffee pudding. And the walls of Ys and the knot cake and the almonds. Do not have crusty bread, so I should make another one of those. Do have the egg croquettes. Do have the game chips. Do have magnificent roast potatoes. I, however, do not have normal roast potatoes. Okay, so this gives me a nice little list. So of the things that I want to make, cold pheasant with grape salad, pale stuffed marrow, cake batter, creamed sugar. Well, okay, those are maybe not as important. Meringue basket of apples, stuffed pale marrow, sea pie, stargazy pie, baked pear meringue, floating island, orange jumble, crusty bread, roast potatoes, apple pie, and honey haunted amber pumpkin pie. That is a great emote for that. Vesper. So this is just kind of coming up with a list of things that I can technically make, as long as I'm willing to wait, I can make without giving up any other elements of the soul with the shell-crossed whist. Now, whether or not I want to do that is a whole other question, because, you know, it's not costless to be down an element of the soul. I do think, though, that this will be rather productive for me, especially with regards to making inks. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to start making enough inks to invite some visitors. So we'll make Peribiot with this. Not all knots are physical. I can brew an ink which ties the naming to the named. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do, I'm actually going to start preparing a salon. So there's going to be 2 sets of cooking that I do. One of them is going to be oriented towards filling in the stuff that I haven't, that, you know, I had at one point, but have, I don't want to say lost, but basically that I have, I want to, like I want to have the full complement of food, but I also want to prepare the next salon. It doesn't even really matter what room it's in. I'd prefer to have as many guests as I can, so I can have up to 5, although obviously if I host something in the Gulskrai Logia, I can have up to 3 guests. I don't even know how I fit everything on the table with 3 guests, to be honest, but we'll figure that out later. But yeah, let's come up with a preliminary guest list, because I have a few things that I'd like to follow up on. So one of those would be, we want Wakefield and Connie Lee. So, and that's just because they already had an interaction and the game encouraged me to follow up on that. And then the other character that I have sort of unfinished business with would be Arthur Moore. So then the question becomes, do I want to invite more people so that I can, do I want to go for more lessons? Do I want to go for, do I want to invite the kills again? I do like the idea of bringing the kills back in for Salon, even if it doesn't give me as many memories. So yeah, maybe we do. Maybe we can invite Mr. and Mrs. Kill. It might be interesting to bring more of the Suppression Bureau types, actually. So if we invite D.I. Moore... I do like how Aaron Peel has a big grin like this. I suppose Daymare would be kind of interesting to bring in. I don't know about bringing in a journalist for an Edge conversation's the right answer here. Serena Blackwood's not a bad option. Eason, a healer. Actually, with this many Edge people, it may not be a bad idea to bring a healer in. You know what? I think Eason might be interesting to bring in given the tattoos. So, given what I know of people's preferences, so Eason wants Moon Food Sky Drink. D.I. Moore wants Lantern Food and Drink. I'm trying to remember what the kills want. They may actually have... They may be free options. Arthur Moore wants Lantern Food and Drink. That may or may not work for me. Connie Lee wants Sky Food and Drink. And Wakefield wants Winter Food and Drink. Okay. Too many DPS, need a support character or the team dies. Yeah, so I guess we do need to bring... Yeah, so we've got Arthur Moore. We've got Eason Thackeray. We've got Detective Illuminate Douglas Moore. We've got MCO Lee. Now, Zachary Wakefield, I believe, is no longer with the Suppression Bureau. One is instructed to address the letter literally: house, street, town, shire, country. So I'm going to maybe spend some time on my own thinking about how I want to, the seating arrangement and that. It would also be kind of nice if I host it in a different room. So it'd actually be kind of neat if I hosted it in the Physic Garden, because I haven't done that yet. I could also try tea. but I would need to, like, I wouldn't be able to use Eigengrau, for instance. All right, unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. So this is nice because this is a replacement for the wood that I gave to Mr. Kill. This is less interesting, but I'm not going to throw it away quite yet. And a sack of vegetables, stew and waiting. So eventually this is going to go in a chicken, but... I think I will go for one more of these. Nope. Pick the one plot that's not... I'm trying to think if I want to use my health for anything else, but in this case, I think I'm going to still go for a walk on the moor. We'll use the Magaphine Mysteries here. Your healer main, you sometimes think you're a healer main because of control issues. I've never really done, well, that's not true. In World of Warcraft, I did do, so I tried a druid, and that, like, I kind of get it, but I think I prefer specialization, right? Like, I feel you should just be one thing. I don't know if I ever played a priest, though. I'd usually tank. I seem to have a knack for drawing unpleasant feeling toward me. This will need to use Ava's desk. Let me just make sure I'm getting a whist back. Yeah, in 30 seconds. Okay, so we take that, we take the Confounding Parable, we combine that with the Edicts Martial. Oh, don't even need to worry about the Lunar Globe. Gotcha. And now it's just a meal would be welcome. Okay, so let's figure out how I'm going to spend the rest of the time. So I think it would be good to feed the chickens. So satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. Better now. The other thing I'm thinking is I may want to hold back with the kills and then... Oh, you haven't seen the Wormwood Dream before? If there are laws which apply only in Dream, then it must also be that there are crimes which can only be committed there. The other thing I'm thinking of is that we may want to have a more serious conversation without the kills, and then what I do is I make it up to the kills by inviting them and a couple of others for a... you know, a special gathering on the Gullscry Logia. That's my other alternative. I'm open to both. But first things first, let's clear out the last of the witch worms. So I've got Victory of Crowns. We had the Wormwood Dream. We had the Whist. We had anything that kills witch worms. Well, and we can apply to the... There we go. Quell the witchworm contamination. The sophist penumbra of the Madrigad's light, invoked carefully through the white flower of the watchman's tree, drives witchworms to twitching death. Okay, here we go. The Concursum Diaries, the diaries of the explorer and murderer Lars Westergren. He's unhelpfully translated them into Frisian for privacy. There are map legends, there are maps of legends, and there are legends of maps. Aspects of the Mansis subsist in all of these, in much the same way that you find water in a swamp, and in a cup, and in the sky. Westergren describes a series of expeditions into the Mansis. He focuses on the details of the experience, the colors, the vistas, the textures, rather than the practicalities. He does warn that the Mansis changes each year, although he assures the reader that the doors have always been the same. Doors may close, but they never disappear, at least not while there have been mortals in the Mansis. We're like mice. So this gives us an intuition and path and pilgrim. So that's a rose and scale. So I should be able to, I should actually be able to commit both of these. Alright, some authorities claim it's difficult to lose a pot of Peribiot ink, but they haven't lived at Hush House, which binds to one whose name is there written a minor ink of power. By the way, I'm going to be wrapping up reasonably soon, so if anybody has any lingering questions about the game, now's really the time to get them in. Now, I get to be a little corny with the Whist, although again, it works out well. This is just kind of an example in terms of how an afflicted element of the soul can sometimes be helpful. So right now we're acquiring a new skill, Path and Pilgrim. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. And then in 30 seconds, I'm going to be able to use this shell-crossed Whist with the Path and Pilgrim and the Intuition to be able to level it up. And I still have the core free to feed the vegetables to the chicken. Oh, although I should be, what do I want to do? Let's see what I can do with Keeper Skin. So I can get 5... Yeah, we can make this work. So I'm going to bring back a health. Well, you know, it's kind of like when you break a bone. You know, if you go to an amateur doctor, they'll like wrap it up in something and tell you to like protect yourself. And then, you know, if you have your parents or anything like mine, they'll say, I don't believe you. You're just trying to get out of school, and like make you walk on it. And then, you know, enough of that, you know, you just learn to stop complaining and get over it. And then, you know, you just get better. So another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. That never happened, by the way, in case anybody's worried. I had a terrible upbringing. I'm sure most of you can figure that out, but I've learned every once in a while I will say something horrible and people will take that seriously. But yeah, so with this in mind, right, this can be... Now, I'll admit, I tend not to like... yeah, the one that was worst for me was I had said... I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was something along the lines of like, you know, oh yeah, my sister used to be like really claustrophobic. So, you know, we just fixed it one day, you know, my brother and I, we just like locked her in the cupboard, and like, you know, she kind of fussed about it a bit. Like she was screaming and pounding at the door for what felt like hours, but you know, eventually she stopped. And then, after a few more hours of that, we opened, and she's just curled up on the ground, and she got over her fear of closed spaces. I mean, she doesn't really talk to us anymore, so I haven't talked to, don't know the last time that she spent time in a closed space, but she seemed fine by the end. And somebody took that as very serious when it was anything but. I would not do that to my sister. But the other one that was kind of funny was I did have a story that I told because I did. Well, the worst one was actually just the way that this person's audience treated them. But every once in a while, I do get to meet someone from sort of the streaming world in real life. And this is somebody who actually was traveling to the to where I was, and so I picked them up at the airport and that. And I'm trying to remember exactly how this story went or something like that. But, I sort of said, you're meeting somebody for the first time. You want to make a good impression. You never know what to say or whatever. But we more or less, even though I don't have the camera, the person obviously recognizes me and sort of heads over. And I say, hey, are you so-and-so? They're like, yeah, are you System Chalk? It's like, yeah, no, that's me. It's like, oh, wow, man. I totally see why you don't use a camera now. And, I think that's a silly, funny little story. Unfortunately, this person's audience called her a very unkind name that you shouldn't call a lady, or anyone for that matter. And I was just thinking to myself, I wish I didn't say this. I feel that's a disproportionate reaction to that story. I'm not gonna go that far, Vesp. Like, I'm perfectly normal. Like, I don't really have very good standards for human beauty in the first place. But I think statistically and just in general, I am perfectly average or ordinary or whatever. So. I mean, I feel like those stories are okay because I'm the punchline, right? I think this is sometimes whenever I have a particularly brutal line, like oh God, now I see why you don't use a camera. If you say that to someone else, that probably will make them feel very bad. Or like I'm not above, an occasionally shocking line. Like, I think at work I had said to somebody, they were talking about like trying to do some sort of N64 emulator or something like that. And everybody kind of looked at me knowing that I played games. And I just sort of shrugged and said, well, I don't play old people games. And like, the thing is that these were quite senior people at work. Like, the context of this is to just say something like, towing the line, but very clearly in context, like everyone knows I love games. Although I actually don't really know N64 games, if I'm honest. But like, clearly that was an audience. No, first of all, if I would own it if I offended someone, right? Like, that was definitely said knowing full well that there is, if there is any power difference, it is between, it's the recipient of that comment that's the one who can crush me like a bug. But it's also, kind of playing against type because I do tend to make a lot of gaming analogies. And I'm glad that like Oswin's reaction is the intended one, right? But I have told that in a different context, and it was actually it wasn't the person I was talking to, but someone decided to sort of get offended on behalf. And I just sort of, yeah, like, it's just one of these things where it's like, you get the context, you own, if you wind up offending someone, you own the you own the mistake and you apologize, right? You know, you're a jerk if you don't. But on the other hand, then there's the sort of, you know, sometimes everybody kind of knows the type, right? There are some people where, you know, just you can't have fun around them because they'll make an issue. And I'm speaking of the offended on behalf, right? Where it's like, you know, you can't say that about N64 games. You know, they're great games. They're, you know, and I'm like, well, this isn't really about the games, right? This is a little bit more about my tendency to, you know, to talk a lot about gaming and to play against type. But again, right, like you can't really explain that sort of stuff to someone who isn't there. Like it's the fact that everybody in the room's having a good laugh about it because one, it's a work context with people who are several levels more senior than me. You know, and everybody just has that laugh because it's so unexpected. If on the other hand, you know, this is the very first thing I say to somebody, and they don't even know that I like games, well, that might come off quite differently. So I don't know though, right? You do your best with the audience. But yeah, I mean, that's about as far as I go in terms of something where I'm not directly the butt of the joke. And even then, I am kind of just having a bit of fun with the fact that my, you know, I do talk a lot about gaming at work. Not always intentionally, but sometimes it just happens to be a very useful analogy. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I always tend to find that those ones work because usually the only person who should be mad about it is me. But again, you where you can, you try and read where everyone's coming from and calibrate accordingly. All right, pleading tuppence. Cluck. But yeah, the appearance one is fine just because it's like, yeah, I mean, clearly no. Like, I'd put it to you this way. If I had any indication that that was going to be the way someone talked to me on, you know, upon seeing me for the first time, I'm probably not going to take the time to meet them at the airport. Right? Like, that particular story would most likely be how I left someone at the airport. But I don't know. Like I said, I did feel rather bad that someone who was following this individual... Actually, you know what? There is one other example of this where this backfired on me. I had I'm trying to remember the name too because I felt quite bad and I wanted to follow up with the individual, but I lost my chat at the time. But I had this thing for a while. I still haven't played Stardew Valley on stream, but I had this thing where I would always say that I'm about to play Stardew Valley. Make a big deal about it. There would always be something to get in the way of playing Stardew Valley. And it would always be like completely invented, right? It's a little bit of a bait and switch, but just in a funny and like increasingly Baroque ways. So like one of them I did full throttle and I had like an hour of Stardew Valley gameplay pre-recorded. Or maybe it wasn't an hour, but it was a long time. And like people were convinced that this was the real time. And then Ben kind of comes smashing through the screen on his bike. And it's like, yeah, no, we're doing full throttle instead. Oh, that's right. Sorry. I did the full introduction, but as soon as the gameplay started, the bike comes through. But yeah, so the first time I did this, I got to the... So this is why this became a bit. I got to the introduction for Stardew Valley where like your grandfather, you know, says to you, okay, you know, when life gets really desperate, open up this letter and everything will, you know, this'll help you out. And, you know, you have the image of you and Joja and you're working there and you have the little anime sort of sweat droplet appear. And then you open the drawer and the letter's sitting there. And I just pretended to get really upset with the game. And I'm like, look, you know, I worked really hard. You know, I was top in my class. I worked my ass off during the data structures and algorithms course. This is obviously Amazon. You know, that is not an easy job interview. I worked very hard. I'm proud to be at the top of my field. I'm paid well. I've got a job that I think is doing meaningful work at a company that's at the top. Like, what sort of game is this to tell me what I should and shouldn't value, huh? And just kind of go on a little bit of a rant like that, completely missing the point of the game, deliberately missing the point of the game, and ending with is like, I'm going to play something that gives me real choices, and opened the Stanley Parable, which, for those of you that are not familiar with the Stanley Parable, as I learned out, there are some that are, some people who aren't into old person games, I'm sure. That game is entirely about not really having choices, right? So the joke out of that is that I'm moving to a game which, very obviously is even more restrictive than, the inciting incident of Stardew Valley. Now, what happened was, months later, somebody comes into the channel and says, hey, I haven't been around for a while. Sorry about that. It's just, I really like Stardew Valley, and I thought you were quite unfair to the game. And, I needed to take a while to get over that. And I felt genuinely horrible. Because obviously that's intended to be funny and silly. And this was a person who apparently had not seen or did not know what the Stanley Parable was, and so never stuck around to see that the whole joke is the fact that I was going from a game I was claiming that didn't let me make choices into one that is entirely premised on the fact that you don't have real choices. So I should probably learn this lesson by now, but I still tell the oh, now I know why you don't use a camera story. I think I'm just a reflexively horrible person, is the lesson that we get out of this. Quell the witchworm contamination. Horrible little things. I can be glad that their screams are almost inaudible. And the Victory of Crowns. This is a pretty easy one for us to read. We're not going to read it yet just because I don't quite have the need for the sharps yet, but the aim here was to clear out the curses, which we have succeeded in. Path and Pilgrim. The traveler is always returning. One who does not is no traveler. Aaron Peel. Okay, so I'm potentially making, I think it was 5 invitations. Let me just double check this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So I'll make 4 more Peribiot. Oh, actually, just for the benefit of Oswin, so I know I'm not going to be able to recover my Whist, but here's an example about how I would do that. So the Librarian's Quarter is quite useful on this one. Now, you may not have unlocked the Librarian's Quarters, so your alternatives here would be... Ooh, actually, I don't think there's a lot of lantern ones. Okay, actually, let's Oh, I found my Swaddled Thunder. So let's go for an alternative. Let's pretend that we had the Guest Bed Infirmary instead, just because that has an edge. So one thing that I could do here, I'm always going to be able to add the afflicted element of the soul here. So I know... Sorry, just let me deal with that. The goal here is to get the 5 lantern. This malady can be cured with bed rest, something suitable, perhaps bright and invigorating to drink, and this much lantern aspect to rekindle the soul's light. So if you have a Faust, you're already ahead by 2. Now, with that in mind, if you don't have the librarian's bed, well, you can't directly put lantern into that. So what you might do instead is you might try and find a bed that has got sky, because Faust has sky aspect as well. The other thing that's interesting, and particularly in the case of something like the infirmary, is that I started as the Twiceborn, which I think gave me Auroral Contemplations. So even with an Auroral Contemplations 2, I'm already over halfway with the Lantern. No problem, Algrins. I appreciate it. I'm actually late going to bed anyway, but I figured I would try and talk a little bit about how to fix the affliction. So at this point, I actually have a few options available to me. So in the case of the bed rest, all that I really need is 2 more lanterns, so I can get 1 from the Foresight. And then in order to restore, so if I want to make something, I'll need to get out of bed. But if I want to cure a malady, I can use skills and memories with something restorative, like fresh linen or a beverage. It's like, okay, well, if this is what it comes down to, I already know that Dandelion wine has a lantern. Now, I wouldn't want to use the whole bottle, but just as an example, this has refreshment. So what I would actually want to do would be to put this in one of the serving stations and make that a glass of Dandelion wine. But even with stuff that's just hanging around, right? So I've got my level 2 Auroral Contemplations, Foresight, and Dandelion wine. I don't even need an element of the soul. I already have the 5 that I need. Now, again, that was with the librarians, the bed in the librarians' quarters, which is a lantern bed. So that is maybe not the most fair of examples. So what's another way that I could maybe accomplish that? A lot of lantern and sky, I'm noticing. You really? You should still be able. So there's one thing that I always like to tell people who want to restart the game, Oswin, and that is there is always a point in the game in which people hit a wall. So I think what you're going to find is even if you restart the game, there's going to be another point where you learn new things. And the game is designed to make sure that you don't, you can't get stuck. The one way you can get stuck in the game would be if you take, let's do the fire this time. So I've got my silver-bound journal. Renounce what could be. Do I really want to burn a book? Do I really want to burn this book? This will destroy your journal, which will make it impossible to complete the game. You'll be stuck, but you can do it if you really want. So that is the one way that you can get stuck in the game, and that's destroying your journal. Now again, I run the risk here of going to the 2 extremes. So in one sense, I want to tell people like, hey, this game is designed to give you challenges. So not every room is going to be opened by an assistant with a certain amount of an aspect. In some cases, it's going to want you to be able to make certain memories or to be able to make things in the, craft certain things. And that's kind of a tutorial, basically. You did so many things without intention. And yeah, I mean, this is it. Like, the thing that I want to say is that you are kind of the author of your own experience on this. And so if that intention matters to you, absolutely start the game over. The thing that stopped me from doing that was just sort of reflecting a little bit on the Tree of Wisdoms and the fact that I kind of think that this game is, a large part of it really is about the organization and acquisition of knowledge. And I know we talked about this a little bit off stream, but this idea that, when I consider my my even just career curve, right? Or even the things that I enjoyed in, in school. I definitely didn't sit down and say, here is the set of things that I'm going to learn to put me into the position that I am today, right? I'm not a big fan of the Malcolm Gladwell book Outliers because I think the 10,000 hours rule is a misreading of the paper that's behind. It's not that doesn't have any truth to it, but I think there's a very narrow set of things that applies for. And there's a really nice book by David Epstein called Range, which is a nice antidote to that kind of thinking. So kind of this idea that if you haven't become a master of the violin at age 5, you may as well not try to become a, professional musician. I think this does a lot more harm than good. And like, not that I want to go too far into my overall career curve, but like, I've done professional work in camera, but I think most of you know me as an economist. And then obviously there's the jobs kind of most people will start off with, which is stuff like, Starbucks. So to me, there is a certain logic behind all of this stuff. And I think that it's allowed me to do things better than I would in other cases. But there isn't really a way that you can like train yourself to follow that particular path. Hey, Aaron Blackwell, and thank you for stopping by. Elkanu is a streamer that I'm very fond of. I've gotten a little bit better at French because of him, but I feel like I should be a lot better at French than I really am. But Elkanu is, let me just take a quick second and shout him out, actually, because I'm actually almost wrapping up for tonight, Aaron Blackwell, so sorry for that. But... Oh, that's an even better example, Awesome. Yes. And now I know why you really like Book of Hours. But this is the thing, like there's two ways of looking at it, which is, the one which is to say, anything that you did that is not in line with your current goal or your current career was a waste. And I really don't like thinking of things that way. Especially because, like I said, I am drawing, particularly in my current role, like I am just drawing on stuff I never thought I would ever use again. And it has allowed me to provide a fairly unique perspective on a few things, which I think in the end has resulted in me making a better... well, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you, Aaron. I think in the end I've wound up with a better product as a result of that. Now, again, I don't mean to overstate it as well. In some cases, you are potentially at a bit of a disadvantage if you don't understand some of the basics. There's a back and forth, but learning to learn is a really important skill on its own. And so I kind of like to think of the Tree of Wisdoms as this, right? Like it's not, I'm sure if the game wanted you to have a clear understanding of all of the implications of putting certain things in, I've had people comment on the YouTube videos that they think it's very annoying that I don't commit things to the Tree of Wisdoms right away, and that I actually don't do things that are to my advantage for lore reasons. So for instance, so the Edicts Inviolable in Horamakastri gave an indication that it had a relation to one of the gods from nowhere. Which is one that I feel very uncomfortable with. And I liked the fact that I was like, you know what, I feel uncomfortable enough about this that even though it's to my advantage, I don't think I want to do this. To me, that's where this game is becoming a role-playing game, where I'm making some decisions that are about me as an individual who's maintaining the library at Hush House. But I can definitely say that wasn't what I did for my first skills. My first skills were all about getting elements of the soul, and then I realized that there were two even contradictory outcomes being described with these two allocations of skills. And so from there, I said, okay, well, I've committed these items to the Tree of Wisdom, and maybe it was intended for me to notice that at the start, maybe it wasn't, but, I've made my choice, and the game has made it so that I can't undo that choice. So I'm going to, take what I've learned and move forward. Because again, that's the sort of thing that I like to think in terms of life is not a bad way of going through it, right? There is probably room for regret on some things, but maybe, I don't think you should beat yourself up for starting off in a different place than maybe where you would want if you had sort of a clear idea of where you wanted to be today, right? And there's a number of reasons for that, but I feel I'm kind of beating a dead horse on that particular angle. So because I kind of like that reflection, again, I think this is a game that has a number of topics that I personally relate to. To me, I've always wanted to see my playthroughs to the end. But the other thing is that as a player of games, I do actually like to work myself out of weird problems. So I've done a version of this where like I haven't committed anything to the Tree of Wisdoms to see how far I can get through the game without that. And I've also done a version where I don't use any of the special helpers. So I don't know if you know about this, but there are higher level assistants that you can hire at the Sweet Bones if you add an element of the soul and money. I know it says in the descriptions now, so that's probably not news to you. But I've also done a version where I don't use those. And again, you can open up the whole house doing that. So again, because I kind of like giving myself those sorts of challenges, the fact that that lines up with a particular worldview that I have, I think works well for me. But in the end, we play these games to enjoy them. And I think if you're going to be playing this and feeling, oh, darn it, why didn't I do this? Why put yourself in a situation where you won't enjoy it? So, you can take 24 hours. The other thing that you can do as well, remember, this game allows for multiple saves, unlike Cultist Simulator. So what you can do is you can save this old save, just to give you an idea of what I've got here. This is what my save folder looks like. Actually, I think there's a bunch of these should be deleted, actually. These probably wound up on Steam. No, they can't wind up on Steam because they're so large. But I think this was the original Steam stream. This is one that I did for GOG. This is one that I did for the Aganalia of Janus. So this one, and this one, I'm definitely going to go back to. And I'll show you why. I think I'm actually going to wrap it up here because there's a couple of other things that I want to show. So let me just take a quick second here. Oop. All right, well, there you go. So there's a histories tab here, and I'm not going to focus too much on the details. I'm only going to show it for a quick second. Actually, maybe it won't show the text. Okay, here we go. So this won't really mean anything, but each time you beat the game, there's a history that's written. I think there's like 150 or something different endings to this game. So you're not going to see all of them. Is the simple answer. They have made it easier now to get all of those endings. But I've completed the game twice. Once as the Twiceborn and once as the Artist. And so the reason why I want to go back to these old saves is that, sorry, the bots are out in full force tonight. The reason why I want to go back to those old saves is that I'm going to have this nice little archive of each of the playthroughs. And, for each of them, I'm going to remember, like, this was the one where I had an idea of how the game worked, but I went down a couple of paths that were a bit different from what I'd intended. What I like out of this idea is that when I take a look at my load, and again, I should probably spend some time clearing this out. So many. In addition to those two, we've got 1, 2, 3. plus this one. So in the end, my expectation is at some point there will be 6 cards, and I'll have a memory and I'll be able to tell a story about each of those. And that's one reason why I like kind of telling people it's, carry on, see where it goes. And if you don't, just, hang on to that save. Because what might be kind of fun is that once you have a full playthrough under your belt, once you feel like you have a good idea of how the game works, it might be fun to go back to that old save and see how you can sort of steer it towards a particular path that maybe you wanted to go on. But again, these are our games. We pay for the fun of playing them. And so it's not, I don't want to be too, I don't want to be too strict in terms of, trying to recommend the one true path. Now, I did accidentally click on this, so there is a secret on the title. Sorry to have clicked on that, right when I got to the screen. But this opens a folder of in-universe letters. And I know a number of you have had to hear this before. And I'm going to do my best to recite this without giggling like an idiot. There is a more readable version of this, but 1722, Profit and Loss. And what I'm going to do, Oswin, here, so I don't know if the existence of these was something that maybe you wanted to find on your own, but I'll say that this is related to a book that you will run into. In fact, you have seen it in this playthrough, but I didn't draw a particular attention to it. But you may learn a little bit more about one of the books that you'll encounter later. So, 1722, Profit and Loss, Palazzo Dario, Venice, 15th of October, 1722. Madam, I regret the intemperancy of what must follow, but I write in haste and full wrath. Even now my sleeves are beset with slither slime. You permitted me to bear away from your library that noble book, The History of Inks, for which I have averred and still aver my gratitude. But, madam, you have behaved in a manner inconsonant with professional care. Madam, to the point, I provided myself a sacred precinct to mix the 5th ink. I set certain protections around the place. I had no wish to be interrupted by robbers or rivals. One of my prominence and noble stature suffers grievously from the envy of lesser practitioners. You must know, madam, that I am an adept of wit and skill, and that these protections were mighty in scope and extent. I warded against worm and storm and bite and sight and the 8 principles and the 400 names. But, madam, I warded not against the pettiest and the meanest. When one takes a lease upon a palace, one expects to bring one's own guards and retainers to defend against uninvited ill-wishers, but one does not expect to deploy ratting cats and mousing terriers for defense against rodentry. That, madam, is a given. And so, madam, I had assumed that as a competent preserver of knowledge, you would place a ward salutiferous to protect against such vermin as rob prophets! Madam, I have taken the necessary time to compose myself, and I will tell the rest but briefly. The raw prophet was drawn to the history of inks, by what I do not know. E'en as I turned to fill the calson, it fell upon the book, and by the time I had turned back, the book was all but engulfed. I strove mightily against the raw prophet with the strength, the great strength, of my arms, but raw prophets are flexit and indelicate creatures, and I won only slime and besmirchment and intimate assault at no small cost to my dignity. Therefore, madam, I do now insist and demand that, first, you abandon all claims upon the history of inks. The book is gone. I do not wish to inquire exactly where, but I imagine within the doings of the raw prophet. Second, that you compensate me for your incompetence. A gift of the second volume of the unexpurgated De Oris, I suppose, will suffice. Thirdly, that you compensate me also for the cleansing of my garments. I attach the bill in full. Yours in honor, Hokebald of Posend. A note on the letters reads, Fine takers dispatched against Master Hokebald. In case of non-payment, seek full compensatory redress from Society Oblivion. There are a number of incredibly... I mean, they all are, but there's a number of very, very well-written letters inside of this one. Profit and Loss is just downright fun to to read. I don't know if I'd want to go to dinner with Hokebald, but he's it is a very fun text to read. You'd seen it, but you thought, yeah. No, it's we all have the same one, madam. Anyways, this was a lot of fun to hang out. I'm sorry I didn't make a little bit more progress, but I think I do need to wrap up. I've actually gone quite a bit over what I was planning to on a work night, no less. Oh, and Prosciutto Fist is actually doing something really interesting. So she's playing a Sherlock Holmes game. So we're going to raid Prosciutto Fist tonight. I don't know what Sherlock Holmes game she's playing, but I want to see what Sherlock Holmes game she's playing. As for me, again, I'll be back on Wednesday and Friday, all going well, but I will just mention that I will be in the States next week. So no stream on Wednesday. There wouldn't have been a stream anyway because I would be at the local game dev meetup anyway. But I don't think there's any chance of me having a Monday stream next week. And I will do my best to be there for Friday, but no promises. It depends on how I'm feeling. And then, of course, the week following is when House of Light comes out. So we'll definitely be doing more Book of Hours. But at the end of that week, you will be enjoying this expansion yourself, no doubt. Anyways, please enjoy Prosciutto Fist stream. I like Sherlock Holmes. I have no idea about the Sherlock Holmes games, but we will learn together. Have a good evening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Alien. Isolation again after seeing Rob.